the wife. He underestimated. The moment Bianca Hartley walked into Aurelius, Manhattan's most exclusive private dining room, she knew the universe had a twisted sense of humor. Because sitting at the corner table, laughing too loudly at his own joke, was the man who'd told her she'd never make it in the real world. Her ex-husband. The same man who'd suggested she find something more her speed after the divorce. The same man who was about to discover exactly how wrong he'd been. Tonight, in front of the most powerful investors in New York, Bradley Knox was going to learn that the woman he'd underestimated had become someone he could no longer ignore. If you want to see how this unfolds, stay with me until the end, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Hit that like button if you're ready for a story about power, respect, and the sweetest kind of vindication. The reservation had been made under Lawson Capital. Bianca had triple-checked that detail before leaving her Upper West Side apartment, running her fingers over the embossed business card one more time just to be certain. She wasn't representing herself tonight. She was representing a silent partner, a significant investor who preferred to work behind the scenes. Her role was simple: attend, observe, ask the right questions, and report back. Nothing more. She'd chosen her outfit with surgical precision, a charcoal suit with subtle pinstripes, fitted but not flashy, expensive but not ostentatious. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low twist, diamond studs in her ears, minimal makeup. The look said professional, competent, serious. It said she belonged in rooms where decisions worth millions were made over wine that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. What it didn't say was that 2 years ago, she'd been crying in a studio apartment she could barely afford, wondering if her ex-husband had been right about her all along. Bianca stepped out of the black car that had been sent for her, nodding to the driver before turning toward the restaurant's discreet entrance. Aurelius didn't advertise. It didn't need to. If you knew about it, you could afford it. If you could afford it, you'd already been vetted. The heavy brass door opened before she reached it, held by a host whose face revealed nothing but polite welcome. "Good evening. Name, please?" "Bianca Hartley. I'm with the Lawson Capital Party." The host's expression shifted, just slightly, but enough. Recognition, respect. "Of course, Ms. Hartley. Right this way." She followed him through the mahogany-paneled corridor past oil paintings of men who'd probably owned half of Manhattan in decades past. The lighting was warm, intimate, designed to make everyone look like they belonged in a period drama about old money and older secrets. Classical music played softly, something she recognized but couldn't name. Then they turned the corner into the private dining room, and her carefully constructed composure cracked. Just for a second. Just long enough for her breath to catch. Because there, holding court at a table full of men in expensive suits, was Bradley Knox. Her ex-husband hadn't changed much in 2 years. Same perfectly styled sandy hair, same Brooks Brothers confidence, same way of gesturing with his whiskey glass like he was conducting an orchestra only he could hear. He was mid-story, and the men around him were laughing, that particular kind of forced laughter that happens when someone with money makes a joke that isn't quite funny enough to justify the volume of the response. Bradley hadn't seen her yet. The host was leading her to a different table, the main table, she realized, positioned at the center of the room with the best view of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This was where the serious players sat. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt exposed. "Your seat, Ms. Hartley." The host pulled out her chair with practiced grace. "Thank you." She sat, accepting the leather-bound menu she didn't plan to read, and tried to steady her heartbeat. Of all the private dining rooms in all of Manhattan, Bradley had to be in this one. The universe really did have a sense of humor. She reached for her water glass, took a careful sip, and allowed herself one more glance in his direction. That's when his eyes found hers. The laughter died in his throat. His hand, raised mid-gesture, froze. She watched the recognition move across his face in stages. Confusion, surprise, and then something else, something that looked almost like amusement. He excused himself from his table and started walking toward her. Bianca set down her water glass and straightened her spine. Whatever was about to happen, she would handle it with grace. That's what she did now. She handled things. "Bianca!" His voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth, confident, with just a hint of condescension that he probably didn't even realize was there. I have to say, this is unexpected. Bradley, she kept her tone neutral, professional. Small world. Apparently, he glanced at the table she was sitting at, and she saw him register the significance. The main investor table. His eyebrows rose slightly. I didn't realize you were involved in commercial real estate these days. There's a lot you don't realize, Bradley. It came out sharper than she'd intended, but she didn't regret it. His smile tightened. Still got that edge, I see. That's good. You'll need it in these circles. He gestured vaguely at the room. These aren't the non-profit fundraisers you used to organize. This is actual business. High stakes. Real pressure. There it was. The subtle dig wrapped in false encouragement. The implication that what she'd done during their marriage hadn't been real work. That she'd been playing at career while he'd been building one. She could have responded. Could have reminded him that those fundraisers had raised 8 figures for children's hospitals. That coordinating 50-person galas required project management skills most CEOs would envy. That she'd been damn good at what she did. Instead, she smiled. I appreciate your concern. I'll try to manage. I'm sure you will. He glanced back at his table, where the other men were pretending not to watch. I should get back. We're here pitching a housing development project to some potential investors. Big opportunity. Probably not your usual scene, but hey, everyone's got to start somewhere, right? He walked away before she could respond, returning to his table with that same easy confidence that had first attracted her to him a lifetime ago. Back when she'd thought confidence and competence were the same thing. She watched him settle back into his seat, watched him lean toward the man beside him and say something that made them both glance in her direction. Watched them laugh. Her hands wanted to shake. She kept them flat on the table, breathing slowly through her nose. This was fine. She was fine. Bradley could think whatever he wanted. She wasn't here for him. She wasn't here because of him. She was here because she'd earned this seat through 2 years of relentless work, through proving herself in boardrooms and conference calls, through building a reputation one carefully executed project at a time. The host returned, accompanied by a sommelier. May I suggest a wine while you wait for the rest of your party? Just water, thank you. She wanted a clear head tonight. She needed to be sharp. Over the next 20 minutes, the room filled. Investors arrived in pairs and small groups, greeting each other with the casual familiarity of people who saw each other at these kinds of events regularly. She recognized some faces from financial news, others from conference panels. This was the upper echelon of Manhattan's investment community, the people who moved markets with phone calls and reshaped skylines with signatures. And she was sitting at their table. The head of the investment group, Marcus Webb, arrived and immediately came to greet her. He was in his 60s, distinguished, with the kind of presence that suggested he'd been powerful for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be anything else. Ms. Hartley, a pleasure to finally meet in person. Our mutual friend speaks very highly of your work. The feeling is mutual, Mr. Webb. Thank you for including me tonight. Please call me Marcus. He took the seat beside her. I understand you've been consulting on some interesting projects lately. That turnaround in Boston was particularly impressive. Thank you. The fundamentals were solid, they just needed better execution. That's being modest. You increased their ROI by 40% in 18 months. She felt Bradley's eyes on her from across the room, but didn't look. Let him listen. Let him wonder. More investors joined the table. She was introduced to each one, a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, a real estate mogul from Miami, a hedge fund manager whose name she recognized from a recent Wall Street Journal profile. They all treated her with professional courtesy, asking about her work, her background, her assessment of current market conditions. She answered with the careful precision she'd learned to cultivate. Say enough to demonstrate expertise, not so much that you give away strategy. Show confidence without arrogance. Listen more than you speak. Across the room, Bradley's table was growing louder. She caught fragments of conversation, talk of development timelines, construction costs, projected returns. His pitch was happening in real time, informal but earnest, trying to secure interest before the formal presentation later. Bianca, she turned to find Marcus studying her with interest. I noticed you looking at the Knox table. Do you know Bradley? Of course he'd noticed. Men like Marcus noticed everything. We were married once. Divorced 2 years ago. She said it simply, factually, refusing to make it dramatic. Marcus's expression didn't change, but she saw understanding flicker in his eyes. I see. Well, this might be an interesting evening then. It already is. Before he could respond, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the entrance. Someone important had arrived. Bianca followed their gazes and saw the host returning, but this time he was walking with unusual deference, half a step behind the man he was guiding into the room. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, probably in his mid-40s, dark hair with distinguished gray at the temples, sharp features, a custom suit that probably cost more than her first car. He moved with the kind of calm assurance that suggested he was used to being the most powerful person in any room he entered. She didn't recognize him, but everyone else clearly did. Marcus stood. Around the table, the other investors followed suit. Even Bradley's table had gone quiet, everyone turning to watch. That's Gabriel Lawson, Marcus said quietly, something like reverence in his voice. Founder of Lawson Capital. If he's here, this just became the most important dinner of the quarter. Lawson Capital, the silent partner she was representing. Her heart rate kicked up. She'd been told he might attend, but it had been presented as unlikely. He was famously reclusive, rarely appearing at events like this, preferring to work through intermediaries and trusted advisors. She'd done consulting work for 3 of his portfolio companies over the past year. She'd never met him. Until now. Gabriel Lawson's eyes swept the room in a practiced assessment, acknowledging nods from several investors but not stopping to greet anyone. He seemed to be looking for someone specific. Then his gaze landed on her table, on her, and he smiled. It was a small smile, private almost, the kind of expression that transformed his entire face from intimidating to warm in an instant. Then he started walking, directly toward her. The room watched. She could feel their attention like physical weight. From the corner of her eye, she saw Bradley straighten in his chair, saw confusion cross his face. Gabriel stopped beside her chair. Up close, he was even more imposing, not in an aggressive way, but in the way of someone who knew exactly who he was and felt no need to prove it. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice low and warm with a hint of gravel. Then, in a gesture so casual it seemed choreographed, he rested his hand on her shoulder and added 2 words that detonated like a grenade in the silent room. "My wife." The shock was instantaneous. Audible gasps from at least 2 tables. Marcus's mouth actually opened slightly. From Bradley's direction, she heard a glass hit the table hard enough to slosh. Gabriel pulled out the chair beside her and sat, utterly relaxed, as if he'd just said the most ordinary thing in the world. His fingers found hers on the table, threading through them with familiar ease. The room erupted in whispered conversations. Bianca felt like she was floating outside her body, watching this scene unfold from a great distance. This couldn't be real. This had to be some elaborate hallucination brought on by stress and the sight of her ex-husband. But Gabriel's hand was warm around hers, solid, real. He leaned slightly toward her, his voice for her ears only. "Hope I didn't overstep. You looked like you could use some backup." She found her voice, though it came out steadier than she felt. "You have impeccable timing. Years of practice." He turned to Marcus, his public face sliding smoothly back into place. "Marcus, good to see you. Hope you don't mind me crashing your dinner." Marcus had recovered his composure, though his eyes kept darting between Gabriel and Bianca with barely concealed fascination. "Gabriel, you know you're always welcome. Though I'll admit I didn't realize you and Ms. Hartley were—" He trailed off, searching for appropriate words. "Married?" "Yes." Gabriel's thumb brushed absently across Bianca's knuckles. "We keep our personal life private. I'm sure you understand." "Of course. Of course." Marcus looked like Christmas had come early. Having Gabriel Lawson at his dinner table was a coup. Having him reveal a secret marriage was the kind of gossip that would fuel Manhattan social circles for months. The sommelier appeared flustered. "Mr. Lawson, may I offer you wine?" "Whatever my wife is having." "Water, sir?" Gabriel nodded approvingly. Perfect. Bianca's mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. She'd worked on projects connected to Lawson Capital, yes, but always through intermediaries. She'd received instructions, delivered reports, never questioned the chain of command. The work had been legitimate. She had the results to prove it. But this public claim? This had to be some kind of strategy she didn't understand yet. Except the way he was looking at her didn't feel strategic. It felt personal. Across the room, she could see Bradley staring, his face cycling through expressions too quickly to track. Confusion dominated, but underneath it, she recognized something else. Something that looked like the first tremor of real concern. Good. The servers began bringing the first course. Around the table, investors were trying to recover their equilibrium, making small talk that kept circling back to congratulations on the marriage no one had known about. Gabriel handled each comment with practiced ease, revealing nothing beyond the basic fact while making it clear the topic wasn't up for extended discussion. He was protecting her, she realized, giving her legitimacy without putting her under a microscope. "So, Gabrielle," Marcus began once the initial shock had settled, "I didn't know you were interested in the residential development sector." "I'm interested in any sector that shows strong fundamentals and room for growth." Gabriel's tone was casual, but Bianca recognized the shift. This was business now. "Marcus, you mentioned Knox Development is presenting tonight?" Marcus nodded, glancing toward Bradley's table. "Yes, actually, Bradley Knox has an interesting project, mixed-use residential in an emerging Brooklyn neighborhood. The numbers look promising." Gabriel's expression revealed nothing. "What does my wife think?" Every head at the table turned toward her. Bianca felt the weight of expectation, the sudden pressure of all these powerful men waiting for her assessment. A year ago, it would have paralyzed her. 6 months ago, it would have made her second-guess every word. Now, she simply took a breath and spoke. "I've reviewed the Knox development proposal. The concept is solid. The neighborhood is gentrifying, there's demonstrated demand, and the location has good transit access." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "However, the execution plan has significant weaknesses. The timeline is aggressive to the point of unrealistic. The construction budget doesn't adequately account for the material cost volatility we've seen this year, and the marketing strategy assumes a buyer demographic that the pricing doesn't actually target." Silence around the table. "In other words," she continued, meeting Marcus's eyes directly, "it's a good idea poorly executed, which makes it a bad investment." She felt Gabriel's hand tighten slightly around hers. Not restraining, just present, supportive. Marcus was nodding slowly. "That's a harsh assessment. It's an honest one. You asked what I thought." "I did indeed." He looked at Gabriel. "Your wife doesn't pull punches." "One of her many excellent qualities." There was unmistakable pride in Gabriel's voice. Around the table, she could see the investors recalculating. The woman they'd been politely welcoming as Marcus's guest had just been revealed as Gabriel Lawson's wife. The same woman had just demolished a project they'd been considering with calm, precise analysis. Everything had changed. From Bradley's table, she heard his voice rise slightly. He was talking to one of his companions, gesturing broadly, clearly trying to maintain control of his pitch. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting toward the main table, toward her. The first course arrived, some kind of seafood arrangement that probably had a French name she wouldn't attempt to pronounce. She ate mechanically, aware that appearances mattered even when your mind was spinning. Gabriel ate with one hand, the other still holding hers on the table. It should have felt awkward, eating one-handed. Instead, it felt natural, like they'd done this 100 times before. "You're handling this remarkably well," he murmured between courses. "I'm very good at pretending I know what's happening." That earned her a genuine laugh, low and warm. "You and me both." The conversation around the table had shifted to market conditions, interest rates, the usual concerns of people who moved massive amounts of capital for a living. She participated when relevant, stayed quiet when she had nothing to add, all while trying to figure out what game was being played here. Then Marcus cleared his throat. "Gabriel, I hate to put you on the spot, but since you're here, Knox Development was planning to present their Brooklyn project during dinner. Would you like to hear the pitch?" Gabriel glanced at Bianca, something unspoken passing between them. Then he turned to Marcus with an easy smile. "Actually, I think my wife's assessment was comprehensive enough, unless she's changed her mind." Every eye turned to her again. Bianca thought about the project she'd reviewed, thought about the flaws she'd identified, thought about Bradley, watching from across the room, probably expecting her to soften her stance now that she was on the spot. "No," she said clearly. "I haven't changed my mind. The fundamentals don't support the risk." Marcus nodded slowly, then raised his voice slightly. "Bradley, I'm afraid we're going to pass on hearing the formal presentation tonight. The consensus seems to be that the project needs more development before it's ready for this level of investment." Across the room, Bradley's face went carefully blank. The professional mask of someone who'd just been rejected, trying to pretend it didn't hurt. Bianca knew that expression well. She'd worn it herself often enough. "Understood," Bradley said, his voice tight. "Perhaps another time when the numbers are more favorable." "Perhaps," Marcus agreed, but his tone made it clear there wouldn't be another time. The servers cleared the first course. The second arrived. Around the table, conversation continued, flowing over the awkward moment like water around a stone. But the damage was done. Bradley's pitch was dead, killed by her assessment, delivered at the table of the most influential investor in the room. Who happened to be holding her hand? She snuck a glance at Bradley and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Shock, definitely. Anger, probably. But underneath it all, something else. Recognition. He was seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time in years. Maybe for the first time ever. Gabriel's thumb traced small circles on her hand, a gesture of comfort or solidarity, she wasn't sure which. She looked at him. This man she'd never met before tonight, who'd just claimed her as his wife in front of Manhattan's financial elite, and found him watching her with something that looked almost like concern. "You okay?" he asked quietly. The question was so unexpected, so genuinely caring, that she felt something crack in her chest. When was the last time someone had asked her that and actually waited for the answer? "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Ask me again in an hour." "Fair enough." The dinner continued. Course after course of food she barely tasted, wine she didn't drink, conversation that washed over her like waves. She participated when expected, smiled when appropriate, all while trying to process what had just happened. By the time dessert arrived, some elaborate chocolate construction that looked like architecture, the investors had shifted from treating her as an interesting addition to actively seeking her opinion. A venture capitalist asked about emerging markets in the Midwest. The Miami real estate mogul wanted her thoughts on climate risk and coastal development. The hedge fund manager inquired about her assessment methodology. She answered each question with the same careful precision, aware that she was being tested, evaluated, judged. Gabriel never interrupted, never tried to answer for her, just sat beside her with his hand in hers, a solid presence that somehow made everything easier. When the plates were finally cleared and coffee was served, Marcus stood to offer a toast. "To new partnerships," he began, raising his glass, "to bold ventures and calculated risks, and to Gabriel and Bianca Lawson, may your marriage be as successful as your business endeavors." The table rose. Glasses lifted. Even from across the room, she could see Bradley's table following suit, though Bradley himself seemed to be moving in slow motion. Gabriel stood, gently pulling her up beside him. "Thank you, Marcus. Though I think the toast should really go to my wife. She's the one doing the hard work." "To Bianca, then," Marcus amended. "To Bianca," the table echoed. She felt her face flush, felt the weight of all that attention, all that sudden respect. It should have felt victorious. Instead, it felt surreal. The dinner began to break up. Investors made their farewells, exchanging business cards and making promises to connect. Several approached her directly, asking for her contact information, mentioning projects she might consult on. She gave out her real business card, the one that said strategic consultant, and listed her actual phone number and email. If this was some elaborate prank, she'd deal with the fallout later. Right now, she had opportunities being handed to her, and she wasn't about to refuse them. Gabriel stayed close, not hovering but present, introducing her to people she didn't know, smoothly handling the social dynamics of a world she'd only recently entered. Then she saw Bradley approaching. He'd waited until most of the crowd had thinned, until there were only a few lingering conversations happening on the other side of the room. His expression was composed, professional, but she could see the tension in his jaw. Bianca, he said, acknowledging Gabriel with a slight nod. Mr. Lawson, congratulations on your marriage. Thank you, Gabriel replied, his tone polite but cool. Bradley's eyes shifted to her. I didn't know you'd remarried, or that you were working in development consulting. There's a lot you don't know about me anymore, Bradley. That's what happens when people divorce. She'd meant it to sound neutral, but it came out with an edge. Bradley flinched slightly. Clearly. He paused, seemed to be wrestling with something. Your assessment of my project was harsh. It was accurate. You don't think there's potential there. I think there's potential in the location. I think your approach to developing it is flawed. She softened slightly, not out of pity, but out of professional courtesy. The concept is good, Bradley. You just need better execution, longer timeline, more conservative budgeting, clearer target demographic. Fix those things, and it might be viable. He stared at her like she'd started speaking a different language. When did you become an expert in real estate development? When I decided to stop letting people tell me what I was capable of. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Gabriel's hand found the small of her back, a gesture of support so subtle she almost didn't notice it. Bradley looked between them, something dawning in his expression. How long have you two been married? That's personal, Gabriel said before she could answer, his voice pleasant but final. Right. Of course. Bradley stepped back, his professional mask slipping back into place. Well, enjoy your evening. He walked away without waiting for a response, shoulders stiff, heading toward the exit with the defeated posture of someone whose night had gone very differently than planned. Bianca watched him go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, no lingering anger. Just a distant kind of recognition that this was closure she hadn't known she needed. He's not handling that well, Gabriel observed. No, but that's not my problem anymore. No, he agreed. It's not. The room had mostly cleared now. Marcus was saying goodbye to the last few investors. The servers were discreetly cleaning tables. It was almost over. Bianca turned to Gabriel, finally allowing herself to ask the question that had been building all evening. What just happened here? He smiled, that same private expression she'd seen when he first entered the room. I'd say we just made quite an impression on Manhattan's investment community. That's not what I mean. Why did you… Come on, he interrupted gently. Let's get out of here. I'll explain everything, I promise. She wanted to press, wanted answers now, but something in his expression stopped her. Whatever this was, it was bigger than a dinner party conversation. They said their goodbyes to Marcus, who looked like he'd just witnessed the most interesting evening of his professional life. Gabriel's car was waiting outside, a black sedan with a driver who opened the door without needing to be asked. She slid into the back seat, Gabriel following. The door closed, creating a sudden bubble of privacy. The driver pulled smoothly into Manhattan traffic without asking for directions. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Bianca turned to face him fully. Okay, we're out of there. Explain. Gabriel studied her, his expression difficult to read in the dim interior light. How much do you know about the projects you've been consulting on? I know I was hired to assess 3 different companies over the past year. I provided strategic recommendations. All 3 showed improved performance within 6 months. She paused. I assumed it was contract work arranged through a staffing agency. It was arranged through me. Each of those companies is part of Lawson Capital's portfolio. I read every report you submitted. That stopped her. You were reading my work? Every word. You have a gift for cutting through complexity and identifying core issues. It's rare. He shifted slightly, his knee brushing hers in the confined space. 3 months ago, I had my team look into your background. I wanted to know who you were beyond the reports. She should have felt violated. Instead, she felt curious. And I learned you'd been through a difficult divorce, that you'd rebuilt your career from scratch, that you were brilliant, determined, and significantly undervalued by people who should have known better. His voice softened. I also learned that your ex-husband was Bradley Knox, and that he was pitching a project to Marcus Webb's investment group tonight. Understanding started to dawn. You knew he'd be there. I knew. And I thought maybe you could use someone in your corner. He smiled slightly. I might have gone a bit overboard with the my wife thing. Heat of the moment decision. You claim me as your wife in front of the most important investors in New York because of a heat of the moment decision? When you put it that way, it sounds insane. It was insane. Probably, he admitted, but you should have seen your ex-husband's face. Totally worth it. Despite everything, the confusion, the surreal quality of the entire evening, she laughed. Actually laughed, the sound surprising her. This is crazy, she said, but without heat. Completely. Gabriel's expression grew more serious. Listen, I know this was a lot, and I know I just made your professional life significantly more complicated. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Manhattan's financial community is going to think we're married. That's going to create expectations, questions, probably some uncomfortable situations. Probably? Definitely. He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of uncertainty she'd seen from him all evening. I can fix it. Put out a statement, clarify that it was a misunderstanding, take the blame entirely. Your reputation won't suffer. If anything, the association with me will help your consulting business. But people will talk. She should tell him to do exactly that. Should insist on immediate clarification, damage control, a return to normalcy. Instead, she heard herself ask, what if we didn't fix it right away? His eyes widened slightly. What? What if we... She trailed off, trying to organize thoughts that were moving too fast. You said the association would help my consulting business. What if we let people think we're married for a while, just until I can establish myself firmly enough that it doesn't matter? You want to fake a marriage. I want to let people believe what they already think. There's a difference. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable. That's, actually not a terrible idea. For both of us. Both of us? I'm trying to close a major acquisition. The board has been expressing concerns about my long-term commitment to the company. Apparently being unmarried at my age suggests I'm not stable enough. He smiled wryly. A wife would solve that problem. A fake wife. A strategically convenient spouse, he corrected, much more professional sounding. This was insane. She was sitting in a car with a man she'd met 3 hours ago, discussing a fake marriage like it was a business merger, which she supposed it essentially was. We'd need ground rules, she said, her consultant's brain already organizing the logistics. Clear boundaries, defined timeline, exit strategy. Absolutely. We can draft something formal. My lawyers are very good at creative contracts. How long are we talking? The acquisition should close in 6 months, maybe 8 if there are complications. After that, we could stage a quiet divorce. Mutual decision, remain friends, all very amicable and mature. 6 to 8 months of pretending to be married to Gabriel Lawson. 6 to 8 months of access to his network, his resources, his world. 6 to 8 months to build a consulting practice that could stand on its own regardless of who she was connected to. What do you get out of this? She asked, besides the board satisfaction? Honestly, the look on your ex-husband's face at dinner was payment enough. He grinned, then grew more serious. But also, I get someone I can trust. Someone who won't be doing this for my money or my connections, but as a genuine business arrangement. That's surprisingly rare in my world. The car was slowing. She looked out the window and realized they'd reached her building. The driver must have known her address. More proof that Gabriel had done his research thoroughly. Think about it, Gabriel said as the driver opened her door. No pressure. If you want to do this, we'll work out details tomorrow. If you want me to clarify that it was all a misunderstanding, I'll have a statement out by morning. Either way, your consulting work stands on its own merit. She should walk away, should thank him for an interesting evening and return to her normal life. Should not even consider such a bizarre arrangement. Instead, she found herself saying, I'll call you tomorrow with my decision. Fair enough? He pulled a card from his pocket. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, a private number. That's my direct line. No assistants, no screeners, just me. She took the card, her fingers brushing his. Thank you, for tonight, for all of it. My pleasure. And Bianca? He waited until she met his eyes. That assessment you gave of Bradley's project? That was all you. Your expertise, your analysis. I didn't coach you, didn't plant opinions. You earned that respect in that room. Something warm bloomed in her chest. I know. Good. Don't forget it. She climbed out of the car, clutching his business card like a talisman. The driver closed the door behind her, and she watched the sedan pull smoothly back into traffic, disappearing into the river of Manhattan headlights. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just so you know, the wine you didn't drink tonight was a 1982 Chateau Margaux, $3,500 a bottle. You made the right choice sticking with water. Gee. She laughed despite herself, typing back, How do you have my number? I read your reports, remember? Thorough research, sleep well, strategically convenient spouse. She shook her head, pocketing her phone, and headed into her building. The doorman greeted her with his usual nod, no idea that she'd just spent the evening pretending to be married to one of the wealthiest men in New York. In her apartment, she kicked off her heels and poured herself a real drink. Whiskey, neat, the expensive bottle she saved for special occasions. Then she sat on her couch, Gabriel's business card on the coffee table in front of her, and tried to process what had happened. 6 hours ago, she'd been preparing for a simple investor dinner. Now she was contemplating a fake marriage to a man she'd just met. A man who'd defended her to her ex-husband, who'd respected her professional opinion, who'd offered her an opportunity that could change everything. It was insane. It was also the most intriguing proposal she'd had in years. She picked up the card again, running her thumb over the embossed letters of his name. Gabriel Lawson, her fake husband. Maybe. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, but this message made her stomach tight. Saw you at dinner tonight. We need to talk. Bradley. She deleted it without responding. Whatever Bradley wanted to talk about, she didn't need to hear it. That chapter was closed. She had a new story starting now, one where she held the pen. The question was whether she was brave enough to write it. She looked at Gabriel's card one more time, then at the delete notification from Bradley's message, then out her window at the Manhattan skyline glittering in the darkness. Tomorrow, she'd make a decision. Tonight, she'd just sit with the possibilities, with the strange, surreal gift the universe had handed her in the form of a man who'd walked into a dinner party and called her his wife. She raised her whiskey glass to her reflection in the dark window. To strategic convenience, she said aloud. And somewhere across the city, she imagined Gabriel Lawson might be doing the same thing. Bianca woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. She stared at her phone screen through bleary eyes, her whiskey-induced sleep having lasted exactly 4 hours. The notifications scrolled past in an overwhelming cascade. Former colleagues, old friends from her fundraising days, people she hadn't spoken to in years, all suddenly very interested in her personal life. The first message she opened was from her former assistant at the nonprofit, sent at 6 in the morning. Bianca, you're married to Gabriel Lawson? Why didn't you tell me? I'm seeing it everywhere. Everywhere turned out to be accurate. She scrolled through her social media feeds with growing horror. Someone at the dinner had posted about it, not publicly, but in the kind of private professional networks that might as well be billboards in Manhattan's financial district. By morning, the whispers had amplified into a roar. Mysterious marriage, Gabriel Lawson's secret wife revealed, read one financial blog headline. Who is Bianca Hartley? Asked another. Her LinkedIn profile had been viewed over 3,000 times in the past 6 hours. She dropped her phone on the bed and pressed her palms against her eyes. This was real. This was actually happening. Last night hadn't been some elaborate stress dream. Her phone rang. Gabriel's number. She answered. Have you seen the internet this morning? Good morning to you too. His voice was warm, amused, completely unruffled. Yes, I've seen it. My PR team started calling at 5. What did you tell them? That I'd handle it personally, which brings me to my question. Have you made a decision? She looked at the chaos on her phone screen, at the messages still pouring in, at the business opportunities already being casually mentioned in emails from people who'd ignored her existence 6 months ago. If we do this, she said slowly, I need to know exactly what I'm agreeing to. Come to my office, 9 o'clock. We'll work out every detail. Your office. Lawson Capital, 52nd floor, Vanderbilt Tower, Security will be expecting you. He paused. Bring a lawyer if you want. This is going to be a real contract, Bianca. I don't do anything halfway. Neither do I. I know. It's one of the things I like about you. He hung up before she could respond to that. She showered, dressed in another conservative suit, navy this time, with a silk blouse the color of champagne. Professional armor for whatever negotiation was about to happen. Her phone kept buzzing. She ignored it. At 8:45, she stepped out of a cab in front of Vanderbilt Tower. The building was pure Manhattan power, 70 floors of steel and glass that reflected the morning sun like a blade. The lobby was all marble and security checkpoints, the kind of place where you couldn't enter without being expected. She gave her name to the guard at the main desk. He checked his tablet, nodded, and handed her a visitor badge that probably cost more than some people's rent. 52nd floor, Ms. Hartley. Mr. Lawson is waiting. The elevator ride was silent, except for soft classical music. She watched the floor numbers climb, each one taking her further from the ground, further from the safety of her normal life. The doors opened onto a reception area that was somehow both minimalist and luxurious. Clean lines, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city that made her slightly dizzy. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine smiled professionally. Ms. Hartley, right this way. She was led down a corridor past glass-walled conference rooms where serious people were having serious meetings. Then through a set of double doors into an office that took up the entire corner of the building. Gabriel stood by the windows, phone to his ear, gesturing as he spoke. He was in shirt sleeves, no jacket, the morning sun backlighting him in a way that should have been dramatic, but somehow just seemed natural. He glanced up when she entered, held up one finger, 1 minute, and continued his conversation. I don't care what the timeline was originally. Push it back 2 weeks. Yes, I understand the costs. Do it anyway. He listened, his expression hardening slightly. Because I said so, and last time I checked, my name is on the building. Thank you. He ended the call and turned to her fully, his expression shifting instantly from steel to warmth. You came. You didn't really think I wouldn't. I thought there was a 50-50 chance you'd decide I was insane and block my number. He gestured to a seating area near the windows, leather chairs, a low table, the kind of space designed for conversations that shaped industries. Coffee? My assistant makes it better than anywhere in the city. Sure. He made a quick call, then settled into the chair across from her. In the morning light, she could see details she'd missed last night. The faint scar above his left eyebrow, the laugh lines at the corners of his eyes, the way his shirt cuffs were rolled precisely to mid-forearm. You look tired, he observed. 17 missed calls and 43 text messages will do that. Ah, yes. The price of sudden fame. He didn't sound particularly sympathetic. It'll die down in a few days. People have short attention spans. Easy for you to say. You're used to this. True, but you're about to be. He leaned forward slightly, his elbows on his knees. So, tell me what you're thinking. Before she could answer, his assistant arrived with coffee, the kind served in delicate porcelain cups that probably cost more than her entire kitchen. She took a careful sip. It was annoyingly the best coffee she'd ever tasted. I'm thinking, she said slowly, that this is either the best opportunity I've ever had or the worst mistake I'm about to make. Could be both. That's not reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you. I'm here to offer you a deal. He set down his cup with a soft clink. But before we get into specifics, I need to know something. Last night, when I called you my wife, you didn't correct me. You could have. You could have laughed it off, made a joke, clarified that we'd never met. But you didn't. Why? She thought about Bradley's face across the dinner table, about the years she'd spent being dismissed, underestimated, told she wasn't built for the real world, about the moment when every powerful person in that room had suddenly seen her differently. Because for the first time in 2 years, she said quietly, someone looked at me like I mattered. Gabriel's expression softened. You've always mattered. Some people were just too stupid to see it. That's kind. It's accurate. He stood, walked to his desk, and returned with a folder. I had my lawyers work through the night. This is what I'm proposing. She opened the folder. Inside was a contract, dense legal language that would take hours to parse completely, but the key points were highlighted. Duration, 6 to 8 months. Financial arrangement, she would receive a monthly consulting fee for legitimate strategic work, plus coverage of expenses related to maintaining appropriate appearances. Living arrangement, separate residences with coordinated public appearances as needed. Exit strategy, mutually agreed upon divorce, carefully managed PR, non-disparagement clause. This is thorough, she said, scanning the pages. I told you, I don't do anything halfway. He returned to his chair. The consulting work is real, Bianca. I'm not paying you to pretend. I'm paying you because you're good at what you do, and I have projects that need your expertise. The marriage is just additional context. Strategic convenience. Exactly. He smiled slightly. Your fee is market rate for someone with your track record. Maybe slightly above, but you'll earn it. I have 3 companies in my portfolio that are underperforming. I want you to assess each one, identify problems, recommend solutions. Same work you've been doing, just more of it. She turned to the financial section. The monthly fee made her breath catch. It was more than she'd earned in 6 months of freelance consulting. For legitimate work, he'd said. Work she was qualified to do. What about the personal aspects, she asked? Public appearances? Maintaining the illusion? What does that actually look like? We'll need to be seen together regularly. Dinners, charity events, the occasional weekend appearance at my place in the Hamptons. Nothing too demanding. I travel frequently for business, which gives us built-in explanation for why we're not constantly together. He paused. We'll need a story about how we met, something believable. What were you thinking? The truth works, actually. We met through business consulting. You impressed me with your work. We kept things private because we both value discretion. It's not romantic, but it's plausible. She nodded slowly, her mind working through the logistics. What about your family? Won't they have questions? Something flickered across his face, brief, but she caught it. My parents are deceased. I have a sister in Seattle, but we're not particularly close. She'll probably send a congratulatory text and then forget about it. Friends? Most of my close friends are business associates who will understand this is partly strategic. The ones who aren't will be happy. I'm apparently settling down. He tilted his head slightly. What about you? Family, friends, people who will need convincing. My parents live in Oregon. We talk once a month, maybe. They'll be surprised, but not suspicious. They never understood my work anyway. She thought about her small circle of friends, most of whom she'd drifted from during the divorce. I don't have many people I'd need to convince. That's kind of sad, actually. Or liberating, depends how you look at it. She returned to the contract, reading more carefully now. There's a clause here about media. All public statements coordinated through your PR team. Non-negotiable. The media will try to dig into your past, manufacture drama, create narratives. My team is very good at controlling those narratives. You'll need to trust them. Trust a PR team I've never met to manage my entire public image. Trust me to manage people who are very good at their jobs. His voice was steady, serious. I'm offering you protection, Bianca. From scrutiny, from harassment, from the kind of attention that can destroy people who aren't prepared for it. But that protection only works if you let the professionals handle it. She met his eyes. You've done this before. Not this specifically, but I've managed crisis situations, hostile media, attempted character assassinations. I know how vicious this world can be. I won't let them eat you alive. There was something almost fierce in the way he said it, like he was making a promise that went beyond contractual obligation. What do you get out of protecting me? She asked. Really? He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with that intense focus that made her feel simultaneously exposed and seen. Honestly, I don't know yet. He leaned back, his posture relaxing slightly. Maybe it's because I spent 15 years building this company, and I know what it's like to be underestimated. Maybe it's because you remind me that competence and credentials aren't the same thing. Or maybe I just really enjoyed watching your ex-husband's face when I called you my wife. That was pretty satisfying, she admitted. Wasn't it? He grinned, then grew serious again. Look, I'm not going to pretend this is simple or without risk. You're about to become publicly associated with me, which comes with scrutiny and pressure. But you'll also have access to resources, connections, opportunities that most consultants spend decades trying to build. This contract gives you 6 months to leverage that access while building something that's entirely yours. She looked down at the papers in her lap. 6 months. Half a year pretending to be married to a man she barely knew. Half a year of opportunity. I need a lawyer to review this, she said. Absolutely. I'd be concerned if you didn't. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I'm sending you contact information for 3 lawyers who specialize in complex personal contracts. They're not affiliated with my company, so they'll give you honest advice. Take 24 hours, 48 if you need it. Have them negotiate any terms you're uncomfortable with. Her phone buzzed with the message. She glanced at the names, all partners at major firms, all with reputations for aggressive advocacy. You're really okay with me negotiating against you? I'm insisting on it. I want you to sign this knowing exactly what you're agreeing to, with representation that's solely focused on your interests. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city spread below them. This only works if we're both clear on the terms. Otherwise, it's just exploitation dressed up in legal language. She joined him at the window, standing a few feet away, both of them looking out at Manhattan in the morning light. From this height, the city looked manageable, comprehensible, all those lives reduced to patterns of traffic and architecture. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's just for your board. You don't strike me as someone who makes decisions to please other people. He was quiet for a moment, his reflection in the glass thoughtful. 3 years ago, he finally said, I almost got married. Real marriage, real relationship, everything. She was brilliant, beautiful, connected to all the right families. On paper, it was perfect. What happened? I realized she saw me as an acquisition, a valuable asset to add to her portfolio. She loved what I could provide, not who I actually was. He turned to look at Bianca directly. When you assessed Bradley's project last night, you could have softened your analysis, could have been diplomatic, avoided making waves, preserved the relationship. But you told the truth because the truth mattered more than comfort. That's rare. That's real. So you want a fake marriage with someone real? I want a partnership with someone who understands the difference between appearance and substance. He smiled slightly. Plus, your ex-husband's face really was priceless. She laughed despite herself. You're never going to let that go, are you? Never. I plan to bring it up at inappropriate moments for the next 6 months. Her phone buzzed again. Another flood of messages. She glanced at the screen and saw one from Marcus Webb. Breakfast meeting tomorrow? Would love to discuss some projects that might benefit from your expertise. It's already starting, she said, showing him the message. It started the moment I called you my wife. The question is whether you're ready to use it. She thought about her empty apartment, her small consulting practice, the years she'd spent rebuilding from nothing. Thought about Bradley's dismissive assumptions and the moment when she'd proven him wrong. Thought about sitting at that dinner table, holding Gabriel's hand and feeling like she belonged in that room. I want to add something to the contract, she said. What? A clause specifying that any business I develop during these 6 months is entirely mine. No claim from you or your company, no expectation of shared ownership or future partnership. What I build, I keep. Gabriel's expression shifted, surprise, then something that looked like approval. You're thinking ahead. I'm protecting myself, same as you. Smart. He pulled out his phone, sent a quick message. I'll have my lawyers at it. Anything else? Yes. I want quarterly reviews of the arrangement. Checkpoints where either of us can renegotiate terms or end things early if it's not working. Also smart. Though I should warn you, my lawyers will probably want the same thing from their end. I'd expect nothing less. They stood there for a moment, 2 people about to enter into the strangest business arrangement of their lives. The morning sun painting the city gold below them. There's something you should know, Gabriel said quietly. Once you sign this, once we make this official, your life changes. Not just for 6 months, permanently. People will always know you as my ex-wife after this ends. That association will follow you. It might help or hurt, depending on how we manage the exit, but it'll be there. I know. Do you? Because I've lived in this world my whole life and I've seen what it does to people who aren't prepared. He turned to face her fully. The scrutiny, the assumptions, the way people will try to use you to get to me or use me to get to you. It's exhausting and invasive and sometimes cruel. I'm offering you 6 months of opportunity, but I'm also offering you 6 months of pressure that might break you or make me stronger. Or that. He smiled. You're tougher than you look. Most people are. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She ignored it. That's going to happen a lot now, Gabriel said. Media requests, interview offers, people trying to get your story. My PR team will filter most of it, but some will get through. What should I say? Nothing. Let them handle it. The official story is simple. We're happily married. We value our privacy. We won't be giving interviews. That's all anyone needs to know. She nodded, absorbing that. The idea of having a PR team managing her life felt both comforting and constraining. When do we make the announcement? She asked. Official statement? End of week. Gives us time to finalize the contract, get you properly prepared, coordinate messaging. He checked his watch. And gives me time to tell my sister before she finds out from a tabloid. She'll kill me if I don't give her advance notice. I thought you said she wouldn't care. I said she'd forget about it after the initial congratulations. But she'll still want to hear it from me first. Sibling prerogative. There was affection in his voice, despite what he'd said about them not being close. Bianca filed that away. A small detail that made him slightly more human, slightly less overwhelming. What about living arrangements? She asked, returning to practical matters. The contract says separate residences, but won't people expect us to live together? My apartment takes up 2 floors. We could easily maintain separate spaces while having an official shared address. He paused. Or we keep separate apartments and say we're renovating, combining spaces, whatever story works. The key is consistency in what we tell people. I like my apartment. Then keep it. We'll figure out logistics as we go. He moved back toward his desk, picked up another folder. Speaking of which, these are the 3 companies I want you to assess. Start with Meridian Tech. They're bleeding talent and I can't figure out why. Revenue is up, benefits are competitive, but we're losing good people every quarter. She took the folder, flipped it open. Company overview, financial statements, employee retention data. Real work. This was actually happening. When do you need the assessment? End of month. Sooner if you can manage it. He sat on the edge of his desk, casual despite the formal setting. You'll have full access to their records, permission to interview staff, complete transparency, no restrictions. They know I'm conducting the assessment? As of this morning, I told their CEO a strategic consultant would be reaching out. I didn't mention you were my wife, figured that might bias the results. She nodded, her mind already working through methodology. Anonymous surveys to gauge employee sentiment, interviews with department heads, analysis of exit interview data if they kept it, standard assessment protocol. I'll need office space, somewhere I can work without constantly being in your building. Already arranged. There's an executive suite 2 blocks from here. Fully furnished, support staff available, yours for the duration. He pulled yet another folder from his desk. The man apparently kept forests worth of paper organized in there. Keys, access codes, emergency contacts. My assistant will show you over after we're done here. She stared at him. You arranged office space before I even agreed to this? I arranged options. If you'd said no, I would have used it for something else. He shrugged. I'm an optimist. You're presumptuous. That too. Despite everything, the absurdity, the pressure, the sheer insanity of the situation, she found herself smiling. There was something refreshing about his directness, his refusal to pretend this was anything other than what it was. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked. A message from a number she recognized, Bradley. We really need to talk. This is important. She deleted it without responding. Gabriel noticed. Your ex? Trying to be. Want me to have my lawyers send a cease and desist? Not yet. Let's see if he takes the hint first. Your call, but the offer stands. He glanced at his own phone, frowned slightly. I have a conference call in 10 minutes. International acquisition. Can't postpone. But my assistant can give you the office tour, get you set up with building access, all the practical details. She stood, gathering the folders he'd given her. I'll have my lawyer review the contract today. If there are no major issues, I can probably sign by Friday. No rush, well, some rush. The media circus is only going to intensify. But don't sign anything you're not comfortable with. They walked to the door together. He opened it, then paused. Bianca, thank you for considering this. I know it's unconventional. That's an understatement. Fair. He smiled, that warm expression that transformed his entire face. But sometimes unconventional is exactly what we need. She left his office with 3 folders, a key to office space she hadn't seen yet, and a marriage contract in her bag. Gabriel's assistant, a woman named Sarah who was probably more organized than the entire staff of most companies, led her through the building, pointing out conference rooms, break areas, the executive dining room she now apparently had access to. Mr. Lawson mentioned you'll need office space, Sarah said as they rode the elevator back down. The suite is quite nice. Previous tenant was a hedge fund manager who relocated to Singapore. Fully furnished, excellent natural light. Has he always been like this? Bianca asked. So, prepared for everything? Sarah smiled knowingly. Mr. Lawson thinks 12 steps ahead on a slow day. You get used to it. The office suite was, as promised, quite nice. 23rd floor, corner unit, windows overlooking Bryant Park. The furniture was modern without being cold. The technology was state-of-the-art, and there was a coffee maker that looked like it required an engineering degree to operate. Support staff is shared with the other executive suites on this floor, Sarah explained. If you need anything, research, printing, scheduling, just call the main desk. They're very good. Bianca walked through the space, touching the desk, the leather chair, the glass conference table. This morning she'd woken up in her modest apartment. Now she had office space in Midtown Manhattan and a marriage contract with a billionaire. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. What kind of person is he, really? Not the business persona, but actually? Sarah considered the question carefully. Mr. Lawson is exacting, demanding, and sometimes ruthless in business. But he's also fair, loyal to people who earn it, and more ethical than most people at his level. He doesn't break promises. She paused. He's also been alone for a long time. Whatever arrangement you two have worked out, I hope it's good for both of you. The knowing look suggested Sarah understood this wasn't a conventional marriage. Bianca wondered how much Gabriel's inner circle actually knew. After Sarah left, Bianca sat in her new office chair and pulled out her phone. 17 missed calls had become 32. The text messages were well past 100 now. She scrolled through them. Old colleagues, former clients, people she'd known in her fundraising days, all suddenly very interested in reconnecting. One message stood out. From Jennifer Price, her closest friend from the nonprofit world, someone she'd lost touch with during the divorce. Bianca, I know we haven't talked in forever, but I just saw your name everywhere. Are you really married to Gabriel Lawson? Call me. I'm not fishing for gossip. I'm checking on my friend. Jen. Bianca stared at the message. Jen had been there during the worst of the divorce, had listened to her cry, had told her she was worth more than Bradley's dismissive assessment. They drifted apart afterward. Bianca's fault, probably, withdrawing into rebuilding her life. She called. Jen answered on the first ring. Please tell me this isn't some elaborate identity theft situation. It's not identity theft. So you actually married Gabriel Lawson and didn't tell anyone? It's complicated. Bianca, I've known you for 8 years. I know what "it's complicated" means when you say it. A pause. Are you okay? Is this real, or is this some kind of arrangement you've gotten yourself into? The concern in her voice was genuine, cutting through all the noise from people who just wanted gossip or access. If I told you it was an arrangement, Bianca said carefully, would you think I'd lost my mind? Probably, but I'd also trust you know what you're doing. Another pause. Is he good to you? That's all I actually care about. He's respectful, professional, surprisingly kind. That's not exactly a ringing romantic endorsement. It's not a romantic situation. Then what is it? Bianca looked around her new office, at the opportunities spread across her desk, at the city visible through the windows. It's a chance, she said quietly, to be seen as what I actually am, not what someone decided I should be. Jen was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I don't fully understand, but I trust you. Just promise me you're being careful. Men with that much money and power don't do anything without calculating the cost. Neither do I, not anymore. Good. Some of the tension left Jen's voice. Listen, I know you're probably drowning in messages right now, but when things calm down, coffee, actual catching up, not whatever circus this is about to become, I'd like that. After they hung up, Bianca felt steadier somehow. At least one person in her life was asking the right questions, caring about the right things. She opened the first folder Gabriel had given her, Meridian Tech. Time to prove she'd earned this opportunity through competence, not just association. The rest of the day blurred past in research and analysis. She contacted the 3 lawyers Gabriel had recommended, scheduled consultations for tomorrow. She drafted initial questions for Meridian Tech's assessment. She ignored 47 more phone calls and 200 additional text messages. At 6 o'clock, her phone rang with Gabriel's number. "How was your first day as a strategically convenient spouse?" he asked. "Overwhelming, productive, strange." That sounds about right. She heard background noise. He was in a car, probably heading home from wherever his day had taken him. "Have you eaten?" "Not since breakfast." "There's a place in the village. Best Italian food in the city, completely private. My driver can pick you up in 20 minutes if you want dinner and a chance to debrief away from phones and offices." She should say no, should go home, process everything, maintain professional boundaries. "Okay," she heard herself say instead. "Good. Wear something comfortable. We're going as people, not personas." 25 minutes later, she was in the back of his car, wearing jeans and a cashmere sweater, feeling decidedly underdressed for whatever restaurant they were heading to. Gabriel was already in the car, also in jeans, his tie gone, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him. "You look terrified," he observed. "I'm not terrified. I'm recalibrating." That's a very consultant way of saying terrified. Despite herself, she laughed. "How was your day?" "Conference calls, contract negotiations, putting out fires, the usual." He settled back against the seat. "Though I did have to explain to my sister why she was finding out about my marriage from a friend's text instead of from me directly." "How did that go?" "She called me several creative names, demanded to meet you immediately, then congratulated me and went back to her life. Pretty much as expected." "Does she know it's not conventional?" "Emma's smart. She'll figure it out, but she'll also respect the privacy." He glanced at her. "How much did you tell your friend? The one you called this afternoon?" "You're having me followed?" "My assistant mentioned you made a personal call. I didn't ask for details, just noted you felt comfortable enough to talk to someone." "That's good. You shouldn't go through this completely alone." It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt oddly thoughtful. "I told her it was complicated, that it was an arrangement, that you were respectful." She met his eyes. "Was that okay?" "More than okay. I want you to have people you can trust. This only works if you're not isolated." The car pulled to a stop in front of a narrow brownstone in the West Village. No sign, no obvious indication it was a restaurant. "Come on, you're going to love this place." He was right. She did. The restaurant was tucked into the basement of the brownstone, accessed through a door that required Gabriel to knock in what seemed like a specific pattern. A woman in her 60s opened it, took one look at Gabriel, and broke into a smile that transformed her entire face. "Gabriel, it's been too long." She had an Italian accent thick enough to cut, and she pulled him into a hug that he returned with obvious affection. "Maria, you look beautiful as always. And you're still a terrible liar." She stepped back, her sharp eyes moving to Bianca. "And who is this?" "This is Bianca, my wife." Maria's eyebrows shot up. "Your wife? Since when do you have a wife?" "Since recently. We've been keeping it quiet." Maria studied Bianca with an intensity that made her want to fidget. Then the older woman smiled, softer this time. "Well, she has kind eyes." "That's good. Come, come. I have your table." The restaurant was small, maybe 10 tables total, all occupied by people who looked like they'd been coming here for decades. The walls were covered in photographs. The air smelled like garlic and wine and something baking that made Bianca's stomach growl. Maria led them to a corner booth, tucked away from the other diners, private despite the intimacy of the space. "I'll bring you the special," Maria announced. No menu. You trust me, yes? Always, Gabriel said. Maria patted his cheek with grandmotherly affection and disappeared into what was presumably the kitchen. Bianca slid into the booth, Gabriel across from her. The leather was worn soft, the table scarred with years of use. It felt real in a way that last night's pristine restaurant hadn't. She seems to know you well, Bianca said. I've been coming here since I was 23. Just started the company, didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and Maria's husband, he passed 5 years ago, gave me a job washing dishes on weekends. Gabriel's expression was distant, remembering. They fed me, let me sleep in the office upstairs when I couldn't afford rent, treated me like family. I owe them more than I can repay. Does she know what you've become? She knows, doesn't care. To Maria, I'm still the kid who couldn't figure out her dishwasher and flooded the kitchen twice. He smiled. It's refreshing, actually, being seen as who you were instead of what you've accomplished. Bianca understood that more than he probably realized. Is that why you brought me here? To see who you were? Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted good food and honest company. He leaned back, studying her. How are you holding up? Really? I don't know yet. Ask me in a week when the shock wears off. Fair enough. Wine arrived, red, in a carafe that looked homemade. Gabriel poured for both of them. So, tell me something real about yourself. Not consultant Bianca, not strategic Bianca, just Bianca. She took a sip of wine, buying time. When was the last time someone had asked her that? What do you want to know? Anything. What did you want to be when you were 10? What's your favorite season? What do you do when no one's watching? That's 3 questions. Start with 1 then. She thought about it, swirling wine in her glass. When I was 10, I wanted to be a detective. Not a police officer, specifically a detective. I'd read too many mystery novels and thought solving puzzles was the most important job in the world. And now you solve different kinds of puzzles. I guess I do. The realization surprised her. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. I'm still looking for what doesn't fit, what's hidden, what the obvious answer is missing. See? 10-year-old you knew what she was doing. He took a drink. What's your favorite season? Fall. That moment when summer finally breaks and you can breathe again. When the city smells like rain instead of garbage. She smiled. What about you? What did you want to be? A teacher. History, specifically. He said it matter-of-factly, like it wasn't surprising at all. I love the idea of helping people understand context, patterns, how the past shapes the present. So why didn't you? Turns out I was better at making money than explaining the Reformation. He shrugged. But I still read 3 history books a month. Some dreams just change shape. Maria returned with food, platters of pasta that looked nothing like restaurant presentation and everything like someone's grandmother had cooked it with love. Bianca's first bite made her close her eyes. It was perfect. Good? Gabriel asked. Incredible. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that felt natural rather than awkward. Around them, the restaurant hummed with quiet conversation, the clink of silverware, Maria's voice calling something in Italian to the kitchen. Can I ask you something? Bianca said eventually. About the woman you almost married, the one who saw you as an acquisition. You can ask anything. How long did it take you to realize that's what she was doing? Gabriel set down his fork, considering. Looking back, I probably knew from the beginning, but I convinced myself I was being cynical, that I was looking for problems that didn't exist. We were together for 2 years before I finally admitted the truth. What made you admit it? She planned a surprise party for my birthday, invited everyone who mattered in Manhattan's social scene. Photographers, the works. It was supposed to be this grand gesture. He smiled without humor. But she forgot to invite my sister, the one person who actually knew me. That's when I realized she'd built this perfect image of who she wanted me to be, and the real me didn't fit. Bianca absorbed that. Did it hurt? When you ended it? Less than staying would have. She was angry, but more about the disruption to her plans than actual heartbreak. He met Bianca's eyes. What about you? When did you realize Bradley saw you as less than you were? She'd known the question was coming, had felt it hovering since last night. Honestly, I think I always knew, but I loved who I was when I was with him. busy, needed, part of something bigger. It wasn't until after the divorce that I realized I'd made myself smaller to fit into his version of our life. And now? Now I'm learning to take up space again. She took another bite of pasta, gathering courage. Can I ask you something else? Something more immediate? Always. When we're in public, when we're playing this role, how close do we need to be? Physically, I mean. Hand-holding was fine at dinner, but what about other things? Kissing, hello, goodbye, those couple gestures people expect? Gabriel's expression grew thoughtful. We should probably establish some boundaries there. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but we need to be convincing. So what feels right to you? Hand-holding, arms around shoulders, sitting close, all fine. Standing near each other in ways that suggest familiarity. Cheek kisses for arrivals and departures if we're being observed. He paused. Anything more intimate, we discuss first. No surprises, no assumptions. Does that work? Yes. The relief was immediate. Thank you for asking instead of just deciding. Bianca, this arrangement only works if we both feel respected. I'm not interested in making you uncomfortable for the sake of appearances. He refilled their wine glasses. Though I should warn you, my PR team is going to want photos. Candid-looking shots of us being a couple. They'll arrange opportunities, suggest locations. It'll feel staged because it will be staged. How often? Once a week, maybe twice. Usually just us being seen at dinner, walking together, that sort of thing. Nothing too invasive. He grimaced slightly. Though there will probably be at least one carefully orchestrated photo shoot for a magazine. My team will negotiate terms, control the narrative, but it'll still be uncomfortable. How uncomfortable are we talking? Posed couple photos, questions about our relationship, our future, maybe our home life. All scripted, all approved beforehand, but still intrusive. He watched her carefully. If it's too much, we can minimize it, but it would help sell the story. Bianca thought about the optics, the strategy. A photo spread would cement the narrative, make them real in the public consciousness. It would also make the eventual divorce more believable. If people saw them as genuinely together, the split would seem natural rather than suspicious. Okay, she said, but I want approval on all photos before publication, and I want to know the questions beforehand. Done. I'll have it written into the contract addendum. More food arrived, something with eggplant that made her want to weep, bread that was still warm from the oven. Maria hovered for a moment, making sure they had everything, her eyes sharp on both of them. You take care of her, yes? She said to Gabriel, but looking at Bianca. I will. Good. She looks like she needs someone who sees her properly. Maria patted Bianca's shoulder. And you. Don't let him work too hard. He forgets to live when he's busy building empires. After Maria left, Bianca raised an eyebrow. Does she talk to all your dates like that? I've never brought anyone here before. He said it simply, like it wasn't significant. This place is separate from all of that. It's just mine. Then why bring me? Because you're not like all of that either. He met her eyes. You're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen a person instead of a portfolio. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. She'd been thinking of this as a business arrangement, a strategic partnership. But sitting across from him in this tiny restaurant, watching him relax in a way he probably didn't with most people, she realized it was more complicated than that. They were two people trying not to be alone in a world that demanded too much and gave too little. The marriage might be fake, but the loneliness was real. I signed the contract this afternoon, she said, changing the subject before it got too heavy. Well, my lawyer reviewed it, negotiated 3 clauses, and then I signed it. What clauses? Extension of the quarterly review periods, more specific language about intellectual property rights, and a modification to the media clause that gives me veto power over any statement that directly quotes me. Gabriel grinned. Your lawyer is good. You recommended her. True. Did she tell you to run screaming? She told me this was the most unusual contract she'd reviewed in 20 years, but that the terms were fair and the protections were solid. Bianca finished her wine. She also asked if I was sure I knew what I was doing. And what did you say? I said I was exactly as sure as anyone can be when they're making a decision that will change their entire life. That's not very sure. No, she agreed, but it's honest. They finished dinner over conversation that ranged from easy to intense, childhood stories, career disasters, the strange ways their lives had led them to this moment. Gabriel told her about building his company from nothing, about the mistakes that had almost destroyed it, about learning to trust his instincts over other people's advice. Bianca talked about the nonprofit work she'd loved, about discovering she was good at seeing problems others missed, about the slow process of rebuilding confidence after divorce. By the time Maria brought coffee and something sweet she insisted they try, Bianca felt like she'd known Gabriel for months instead of days. It was disorienting and comfortable all at once. "Can I tell you the truth about something?" Gabriel said as they waited for the check that would never come. Maria refused payment from him, a battle he'd apparently stopped fighting years ago. "Please. When I walked into that dinner last night and saw you sitting there, looking completely out of place but refusing to show it, I didn't plan to call you my wife. I planned to introduce myself, maybe offer some professional support. The wife thing just came out." "Heat of the moment decision," she reminded him. "Right, but it felt correct somehow. Like I was saying something true, even though it was completely made up." He shook his head. "That probably sounds insane." "It sounds like you recognize something. I don't know what, but something." "Maybe." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Here's what I know for sure. In the past 24 hours, you've impressed my investors, negotiated a contract that protects your interests, and handled sudden fame with more grace than most people manage after years of practice. Whatever this arrangement turns into, I'm glad we're doing it together." Bianca felt warmth spread through her chest. "Me too." They left the restaurant with Maria's insistence that they return soon, stepped out into the village night. The air was cool, the streets quieter than Midtown, the neighborhood still clinging to its bohemian roots despite the encroaching luxury. "Walk you home?" Gabriel asked. "I can take a cab." "I know you can, but can I walk you home anyway?" She nodded, and they started walking, not touching, but close enough that their hands occasionally brushed. The silence between them was comfortable now, the earlier tension replaced by something easier. "I have a charity gala on Friday," Gabriel said after a few blocks. "Black tie, insufferably boring speeches, overpriced wine, but it's high profile and it would be a good first public appearance as a married couple, if you're interested." "What's the cause?" "Children's literacy. They build libraries in underserved schools." That got her attention. "I used to fundraise for similar programs." "I know. I thought you might appreciate this one." He glanced at her. "No pressure. We can start smaller if this feels too big." "No, it's perfect. I'll need a dress." "Already arranged. My assistant will coordinate with you tomorrow. Designer, fitting, the works." Consider it part of the business expenses. She should probably argue about him buying her clothes, but the truth was, her closet didn't include anything appropriate for a black tie gala. "Thank you. You're doing me a favor by attending. Thank you." They reached her building too soon. The doorman recognized her, nodded politely, pretended not to notice Gabriel Lawson standing in the lobby. "This is me," she said unnecessarily. "I gathered." He smiled, then grew more serious. "Before Friday, we should probably practice." "Practice what?" "Being a couple. The small things. How we stand together, how we introduce each other, the way we interact when people are watching. It's different than how we are in private. Like rehearsing. Exactly like that. My place, Thursday evening. We can order food, run through scenarios, make sure we're on the same page before the actual event." It made sense. They needed to be convincing, and convincing required coordination. "Okay, what time?" 7. "I'll send a car." "I can take the subway." "I know you can, but my place isn't easy to find and I'd rather not have you wandering lost through my building." He pulled out his phone, sent her a quick message. "There's the address and my private number, which you already have, but now it's attached to an actual contact entry." She saved it, noting that he'd entered himself simply as Gabriel with no last name or title. A small thing, but it felt significant somehow. "I should go," she said, even though she didn't particularly want to. "Early day tomorrow. Meridian Tech assessment?" "Among other things." She hitched her bag higher on her shoulder. "Thank you for dinner, for all of it. I needed normal tonight." "So did I." He moved closer, slowly enough that she could step back if she wanted. Instead, she stayed still as he kissed her cheek, his hand briefly touching her shoulder. It was exactly what he'd described earlier, The kind of gesture couples made when parting. Familiar, affectionate, appropriate. But her heart still jumped. "Good night, Bianca." "Good night." She watched him leave, walk back out into the Manhattan night, a man who'd claimed her as his wife and given her an opportunity that still felt too big to fully comprehend. Then she rode the elevator to her apartment, let herself in, and stood in the middle of her living room trying to process everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gabriel. "Made it home. Thanks for being patient with my terrible dishwashing confession. Sleep well." She smiled despite herself, typed back, "Thanks for trusting me with Maria. She's lovely." The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "She liked you. That's rare. Also significant." Bianca wanted to ask what made it significant, but she was afraid of the answer. Instead, she sent back a simple, "See you Thursday." "Looking forward to it." She set her phone down and went to her closet, staring at the clothes that had seemed perfectly adequate yesterday and now felt completely insufficient. In 3 days, she'd be attending a black tie gala as Gabriel Lawson's wife. In 4 days, there would be an official announcement. In 6 months, this would all be over. But right now, standing in her apartment with the taste of Maria's cooking still on her tongue and the memory of Gabriel's lips on her cheek, 6 months felt both impossibly long and terrifyingly short. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation and surreal adjustments. Bianca met with Gabriel's PR team, 3 sharp professionals who treated the fake marriage with the same seriousness as a corporate merger. They drafted talking points, created backstory details that would withstand scrutiny, prepared her for the kinds of questions reporters might ask. "Keep it simple," the lead PR person, Caroline, advised. "You met through work, connected over shared interests, kept things private because you both value discretion. Don't elaborate unless pressed, and even then, stay vague." They practiced responses to invasive questions, walked through worst-case scenarios, discussed what to do if someone challenged the narrative. It felt like training for espionage. She also started the Meridian Tech Assessment, spending 2 days on site interviewing employees and reviewing documentation. The pattern became clear quickly. High-performing individuals were leaving because middle management was toxic, creating an environment where talent felt undervalued regardless of compensation. Classic organizational problem, solvable with the right intervention. She drafted her preliminary findings, sent them to Gabriel. His response came within an hour. "This is exactly what I suspected but couldn't prove. Excellent work. Can you have full recommendations by end of week?" "Yes. Will include implementation timeline and estimated costs." "Perfect. Looking forward to Thursday." Thursday arrived with the same disorienting speed as everything else. She left work early, went home to change into something nice but not formal. Gabriel had said rehearsal, not performance. She chose dark jeans, a silk blouse, leather jacket. Comfortable, but put together. The car arrived exactly at 6:30. The driver already knew where to take her. Gabriel's building in Tribeca, a converted warehouse that probably cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Security cleared her through with the kind of deference that suggested they'd been thoroughly briefed. The elevator required a key card to access the penthouse floors. She rode up in silence, watching the numbers climb, trying to calm nerves that had no rational basis. This was rehearsal, practice, professional preparation. The elevator opened directly into Gabriel's apartment. She stepped out and stopped, breath-catching. The space was enormous, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, art that belonged in museums casually displayed on walls. But it wasn't cold. Books lined shelves built into every available wall, comfortable furniture suggested actual use, and photographs in simple frames showed a life lived beyond just acquisition. "You made it." Gabriel emerged from what appeared to be the kitchen, barefoot, in jeans and a Henley shirt that made him look younger and more approachable than his business persona. "Come in. I'm attempting to cook, which means we'll probably end up ordering food when I inevitably fail." She followed him into the open-plan living space, noting details that felt personal. A telescope by the windows, stacks of books on the coffee table. History, as promised. A chess set mid-game, like he played against himself. "Who's winning?" she asked, gesturing to the chessboard. "Both sides. I'm either brilliant or talking to myself too much." He poured wine, red, good but not showy. "How was your week?" "Productive. Strange. I'm still getting text messages from people I haven't talked to in 5 years. That'll continue for a while. Eventually, they'll realize you're not going to leverage the relationship to get them access to me, and they'll lose interest. He handed her a glass. Sorry about that, by the way. People are predictable and occasionally terrible. I'm learning that. She accepted the wine, took in the view. Manhattan spread out below them, the city transitioning from day to evening, lights beginning to sparkle. This is beautiful. It's home. He joined her at the windows. I bought this place 10 years ago when everyone said Tribeca was over. Turns out everyone was wrong. They stood there for a moment, drinking wine, watching the city. Then Gabriel stepped back, became slightly more businesslike. Okay, so, Friday night, here's what we need to prepare for. He walked to the dining table where he'd apparently set out notes. The gala starts at 7. We should arrive fashionably late, 7:30, maybe 8. Photographers will be outside, so we need to be camera ready and comfortable with each other. Define comfortable. Hand on your back as we walk in, staying close when we navigate the crowd. Introductions where I call you my wife naturally, not like I'm reading a script. He demonstrated, moving beside her, his hand settling at the small of her back. Like this. Does this feel okay? Yes. Good. If it ever doesn't, just step slightly forward. I'll register the signal and adjust. He moved away, giving her space again. Inside there will be the usual social dynamics. People congratulating us, asking questions, trying to figure out our story. Caroline sent you the talking points? Memorize them. Excellent, but don't sound memorized. These people are sharks. They can smell prepared statements. He picked up his wine glass. The key is to seem naturally private, not evasive. We're happy to confirm we're married, happy to acknowledge we kept it quiet, but we're not interested in discussing details because we value our privacy. What if someone directly asks how we met? Through work. I needed strategic consulting. You came highly recommended. We discovered we worked well together. Things developed naturally from there. He smiled. It's even mostly true. She practiced the phrasing, trying different emphases, finding what felt natural. Gabriel listened, occasionally suggesting adjustments, his feedback thoughtful and specific. Better, he said after her third attempt. You sound like you're protecting something precious rather than hiding something suspicious. That's the tone we want. They moved on to other scenarios, how to handle toasts, what to do if someone made inappropriate comments, strategies for graceful exits from conversations. Gabriel played different roles, testing her responses, pushing her to stay consistent with the narrative. What if someone asks about children? She said suddenly. Future plans, that sort of thing? Gabriel paused. Good question. What feels right to you? We're focused on our careers right now, open to possibilities in the future, but not actively planning? She phrased it as a question. Perfect. Vague enough to be meaningless, specific enough to satisfy curiosity. He refilled their wine glasses. Though if someone gets too pushy about it, feel free to shut them down. You don't owe anyone explanations about your reproductive choices. Even in a fake marriage? Especially in a fake marriage. He was serious now. The boundaries we set publicly are for your protection, not just the performance. Don't let anyone make you uncomfortable for the sake of appearances. She nodded, appreciating that more than she could articulate. They practiced for another hour, standing together, moving through space as a unit, the small touches that suggested familiarity. Gabriel was right that it required coordination. They had to learn each other's rhythms, anticipate movements, create the illusion of long comfort. You're good at this, she observed after they'd successfully navigated a mock receiving line. Years of practice at being someone I'm not. He said it lightly, but something underneath suggested it wasn't entirely a joke. Come on, I'm calling an end to rehearsal before we both overthink this. Food should be here in 20 minutes. You gave up on cooking? I never started. I was making you feel comfortable by pretending to be domestic. He grinned. I ordered from a place that does excellent Thai food. Hope that's okay. More than okay. They moved to the living room, settling on the comfortable couch with the chess game between them. Gabriel reset the pieces without asking, clearly inviting her to play. How long since you played? He asked. College. I was mediocre then, and probably worse now. Perfect. I'll go easy on you. He didn't go easy on her, but he did explain his strategy, teaching as they played, turning it into a conversation rather than competition. She lost spectacularly, but learned more about chess in 40 minutes than she had in 4 years of college. You're a good teacher, she said as he put her king in checkmate for the second time. I like sharing things I enjoy. He started resetting the board. One more game before food arrives? This time she lasted longer, remembering his lessons, thinking 3 moves ahead instead of 1. She still lost, but it was closer. The food arrived as promised. Enough Thai food for 6 people, because apparently Gabriel didn't believe in restraint when ordering takeout. They ate straight from the containers, sitting on the floor by the coffee table because it felt more comfortable than the formal dining area. Tell me about Meridian Tech, Gabriel said between bites of pad thai. What did you find? She walked him through her assessment, the data, the patterns, the interviews that had revealed the true problem. Gabriel listened with complete focus, asking sharp questions, pushing her to defend her conclusions. So your recommendation is to restructure middle management? Fire the toxic managers? Promote people who actually know how to lead? Implement better oversight from senior leadership? It'll be expensive and disruptive in the short term, but you'll stop bleeding talent. Cost estimate? $2 million for severance packages, hiring, and implementation. But you're losing more than that annually in recruitment costs and lost productivity. ROI positive within 18 months. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he nodded. Do it. Draft the full plan with timeline, and I'll present it to the board next week. You're not going to push back? Question the expense? Why would I? You identified the problem, provided evidence, and recommended a solution with clear ROI. That's exactly what I hired you for. He met her eyes. I trust your expertise, Bianca. I'm not going to second-guess you. The simple confidence in her abilities made something tight in her chest loosen. Bradley had questioned every decision she made, always suggesting she was missing something, implying her judgment was flawed. Gabriel just trusted her to know what she was doing. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me for treating you like the professional you are. That's baseline respect. He gathered empty containers, started cleaning up. Want to see the rest of the place? Fair warning, it's unreasonably large for one person. She followed him through the apartment. He was right. It was enormous. 3 bedrooms, an office that could double as a library, a media room with a screen that belonged in a theater. But everywhere were signs of actual life, books left open, projects in progress, the comfortable mess of someone who lived rather than just existed. This could be your space, he said, opening a door to a bedroom suite as large as her entire apartment. If we decide to make the living arrangement official, completely separate, your own entrance if you want it, total privacy. She stepped inside. It was beautiful, windows overlooking the river, a bathroom that looked like a spa, a sitting area that could easily function as an office. She could imagine working here, living here. I'll think about it, she said, though part of her had already decided. They ended up back in the living room on the couch, talking as the city lights grew brighter outside. Gabriel told her about his sister Emma, about their complicated childhood, about building something from nothing because he'd had no other choice. Bianca talked about her parents' quiet disappointment in her choices, about discovering she was good at things they didn't understand, about the slow work of defining success on her own terms. Do you ever regret it? She asked. The divorce from what could have been? From the woman I almost married? No, that would have been slowly suffocating disguised as happiness. He shifted slightly, his arm along the back of the couch. Do you? Regret divorcing Bradley? Not anymore. For a while I did. Kept thinking I'd failed at something I should have been able to fix. But now I see it as the best decision I ever made. I just wish I'd made it sooner. We're both recovering from relationships that wanted us to be smaller than we are. So we built a fake marriage to prove we're actually bigger? He laughed. When you put it that way, we sound completely insane. Maybe we are. Probably. He checked his watch, seemed surprised by the time. It's almost midnight. I should let you go home. She didn't want to leave. The realization surprised her, but sitting here with Gabriel talking about real things in this space that felt more like home than her apartment did, It was comfortable in a way she hadn't experienced in years. But she stood anyway, gathering her things. Thank you for tonight. For the rehearsal, the food, all of it. Thank you for being patient with my neurotic need to practice social scenarios. He walked her to the elevator, pressed the call button. You'll do great tomorrow night. Just be yourself. Which self? The consultant, the fake wife, or the person who's still not entirely sure what she's doing? All three. They're all you. The elevator arrived. He held the door. My driver will pick you up at 6:30 tomorrow. Dress will be delivered by 4. Caroline wants to run through final messaging at 5 if you have time. I'll make time. He kissed her cheek again, the gesture more natural now. Sleep well, strategically convenient spouse. You too. The elevator doors closed on his smile, and she rode down alone, her reflection in the polished walls showing someone who looked calmer than she felt. Tomorrow night, they would make their public debut. Tomorrow night, the performance would begin in earnest. But tonight had been real. The conversation, the laughter, the comfortable silence, that had been two people genuinely enjoying each other's company. Whatever else this arrangement was, she was starting to suspect it might also become a genuine friendship. Her phone buzzed as the elevator reached the lobby. Gabriel. Forgot to mention, you won the second chess game. I realized after you left that I made a stupid mistake 3 moves from the end. Next time I won't let you win by accident. She smiled, typing back. Next time I won't need you to. Looking forward to finding out. Good night, Bianca. Good night. The dress arrived at 3:30, carried by 2 assistants who treated it like it might shatter. Bianca watched them unpack it from layers of tissue paper with the kind of reverence usually reserved for archaeological artifacts. When they finally revealed it, she understood why. It was midnight blue, almost black in certain light, with a neckline that suggested elegance without being provocative. The fabric moved like water, and when she tried it on, it fit perfectly. Not the kind of perfect that came from standard sizing, but the kind that meant someone had taken her exact measurements and created something specifically for her body. Mr. Lawson wanted to ensure you felt confident, one of the assistants said, adjusting a nearly invisible seam. He was very specific about the designer and the style. He has good taste. He has excellent research capabilities. He studied photos from your nonprofit fundraising days, identified what styles made you look most comfortable, and requested something in that vein, but elevated. The assistant stepped back, assessing. It's perfect. You look stunning. Bianca stared at her reflection. The woman looking back was polished, sophisticated, someone who belonged at a black-tie gala on the arm of a billionaire. It should have felt like a costume. Instead, it felt like remembering who she'd been before she'd made herself smaller. Caroline arrived at 5 on the dot, armed with final talking points, and the kind of efficiency that suggested she'd been doing crisis management since birth. She ran through scenarios rapid fire, testing Bianca's responses, adjusting phrasing, ensuring consistency. Remember, you're not hiding anything because there's nothing to hide. You're simply private people who don't feel the need to perform your relationship for public consumption. Caroline made a note on her tablet. If anyone implies there's something suspicious about the timing or the secrecy, you smile and say you're happy, and that's what matters. Don't get defensive. And if they ask about Bradley, you acknowledge you were previously married, that it ended amicably enough, and that you've moved forward with your life. Don't elaborate. Don't explain. Definitely don't compare. Caroline fixed her with a look that suggested she'd seen too many people self-destruct in the media. The narrative is forward-looking. You and Gabriel building something together, the past is irrelevant. By the time Caroline left, Bianca's head was spinning with protocols and phrasing. She took a long shower, did her makeup with more care than usual, and tried to calm the nerves that had been building all day. Her phone buzzed. Gabriel. Driver's 10 minutes out. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. You're going to be amazing. See you soon. The car arrived exactly when promised. Bianca descended to the lobby in her gown and the heels that had come with it, impossibly elegant, surprisingly comfortable. The doorman's eyes widened slightly, but he maintained professional composure. Have a wonderful evening, Ms. Hartley. Thank you, James. She slid into the back seat of the car and found Gabriel already there, somehow looking even better in a tuxedo than he did in business suits. He glanced up from his phone, and something shifted in his expression. Surprise, appreciation, something else she couldn't quite name. "You look incredible," he said simply. "The dress is doing most of the work." "The dress is just fabric. You're what makes it work." He pocketed his phone, gave her his full attention. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified and excited in equal measure." That's the right ratio for these things. He shifted slightly, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something subtle and expensive. "Quick reminder before we get there. We don't have to stay long. 2 hours, 3 maximum. Make an appearance, support the cause, then we can escape." "What happens after we escape?" "I thought we could get terrible diner food and decompress. There's a place in Queens that makes the best breakfast at midnight." He smiled. "Unless you'd rather go straight home." Terrible diner food sounds perfect. The car pulled up to the venue, a museum that had been transformed for the evening, red carpet leading to marble steps, photographers clustered behind velvet ropes. Even from inside the car, Bianca could see the flashes going off, hear the muffled shouts of paparazzi calling for attention. Gabriel must have sensed her tension because his hand found hers. "Remember what we practiced. Stay close to me. Don't look directly at cameras. Smile, but don't pose. We're not performing for them. We're simply arriving at an event together." "Right. Simple. Terrifying, but simple." He squeezed her hand gently. "Ready?" She took a breath. "Ready." The driver opened Gabriel's door first. He stepped out, and the volume of the photographers immediately increased. She heard his name being called, saw flashes intensifying. Then he turned back to the car, extending his hand to help her out. She took it, letting him guide her up and out of the car in a movement they'd practiced in his living room. His hand settled at the small of her back exactly as rehearsed, familiar and steadying. The photographers went absolutely wild. "Gabriel, who's your date?" "Mr. Lawson, over here. Is that your wife?" Gabriel didn't acknowledge them, didn't pause. He simply guided Bianca up the red carpet at an easy pace, his presence a shield against the chaos. She kept her eyes forward, maintained the slight smile Caroline had coached her on, and tried to breathe normally despite her heart hammering. They paused once, halfway up the steps, ostensibly to let an older couple ahead of them pass, but actually to give the photographers the shot they wanted. Gabriel's hand on her back, both of them relaxed and comfortable, looking at each other rather than the cameras. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, but Bianca knew those would be the photos that made headlines. Then they were through the doors, into the relative calm of the museum's grand entrance. The contrast was jarring, from chaos to elegance in the span of a threshold. "You did great," Gabriel murmured. "The worst part is over." "That was the worst part?" "Well, now comes the second worst part. Small talk with people who are desperately curious but too polite to ask direct questions." He was right. The moment they entered the main gallery, conversations paused, eyes tracked their movement. Bianca felt the weight of attention, the speculation, the judgment being formed in real time. Gabriel seemed completely unfazed. He accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, handed it to Bianca, took another for himself. Then he spotted someone across the room and steered them in that direction with the kind of social navigation that suggested he'd been doing this his entire life. "Richard, good to see you." Gabriel shook hands with a distinguished man in his 70s. "Have you met my wife?" "Bianca, this is Richard Chen, chairman of the Literacy Foundation we're here to support." "Mrs. Lawson, what a pleasure." Richard's handshake was firm, his smile genuine. "I have to say Gabriel kept you very well hidden. We were all starting to think he was allergic to commitment." "I'm just particular about who I commit to," Gabriel said easily. Bianca was worth waiting for. The casual affection in his tone sounded completely natural. Bianca was starting to understand why he was so successful in business. The man could sell any narrative he chose. "Well, we're delighted you're both here. Bianca, Gabriel mentioned you have experience in nonprofit fundraising." And just like that, she was pulled into conversation about organizational strategy, donor cultivation, the challenges of sustaining programs long term. Richard was sharp, engaged, clearly passionate about the cause. Within minutes, she'd forgotten to be nervous, lost in the kind of discussion she'd always loved. Gabriel stayed close but didn't dominate the conversation. He added context where relevant, asked questions that moved the discussion forward, but mostly let her shine. She caught him watching her at one point, something that looked like pride in his expression. They moved through the room, conversation to conversation. Gabriel introduced her to investors, philanthropists, business leaders. Some were genuinely interested in meeting her, asking about her work, treating her as more than just Gabriel's accessory. Others were transparent in their calculation, already figuring out how to use the connection. "You're handling this better than I did my first major event," Gabriel said during a brief moment alone between conversations. "I spent the entire night wanting to hide in the bathroom. The night is young. I might still end up hiding in the bathroom. If you do, I'll come with you. We can make it a strategic retreat." She laughed, and he grinned, and someone across the room took a photo of that moment. Genuine enjoyment, unguarded smiles. Tomorrow, it would probably be all over social media with speculative captions about their relationship. Marcus Webb appeared with another couple, and Bianca braced herself for more performance. But Marcus seemed more interested in introducing his wife, Helen, who turned out to be refreshingly direct. "So you're the woman who finally got Gabriel to settle down," Helen said, her tone suggesting she was both impressed and skeptical. "How did you manage it?" "I didn't manage anything. We just work well together." "Well, that's more than most marriages can claim." Helen studied her with sharp intelligence. "Gabriel tells me you're consulting on some of his portfolio companies. How's that going?" They talked business for 10 minutes, Helen asking pointed questions that tested Bianca's expertise. It felt like an evaluation, which Bianca suspected it was. Gabriel's inner circle was clearly protective, making sure she was legitimate and not just using him. She must have passed the test because Helen eventually smiled, genuinely this time. "You're good, better than the last woman who tried to attach herself to Gabriel's success." "Helen," Marcus said warningly. "What?" "It's true." She turned back to Bianca. "That one was all performance, no substance. You're the opposite. I like that." After they moved on, Gabriel leaned close. "Helen doesn't like most people. Consider that high praise. She was testing me. Of course she was. And you passed brilliantly." His hand settled on her back again, the gesture becoming almost unconscious. "Come on, I want you to meet someone." He led her to a quieter corner where a woman in her 40s stood alone, studying a painting with the kind of focus that suggested she was actually seeing it rather than just looking. "Emma," Gabriel said, and the woman turned. The family resemblance was immediate. Same eyes, same strong features, though Emma's expression held a warmth Gabriel usually kept hidden. "So you're the mysterious wife," Emma said, looking Bianca over with undisguised curiosity. "I'm trying to decide if I should hug you or interrogate you first." "Emma's my sister," Gabriel said unnecessarily. "She flew in from Seattle specifically for this." "I flew in because my brother got married without telling me and I needed to verify his sanity in person." Emma extended her hand. "Emma Lawson, pleased to meet you, Bianca." "Likewise." Bianca shook her hand, noting the strength in the grip. "Walk with me?" Emma asked. And it wasn't really a question. Gabriel gave Bianca a look that said he'd rescue her if needed, but she shook her head slightly. She could handle this. She and Emma moved through the gallery, stopping occasionally to look at art. Neither of them were really seeing. "I'm not going to ask if this is real," Emma said after a moment. "That's Gabriel's business, and he's earned the right to privacy, but I'm going to ask if he's treating you well." "He is, very well, actually." "Good. Because despite evidence to the contrary, my brother is actually capable of being hurt." Emma stopped in front of a painting of a stormy seascape. "He told you about the woman he almost married?" "Some of it. She destroyed his ability to trust that people might want him for who he is, rather than what he has. It took him years to even consider trying again." Emma turned to face Bianca fully. "Whatever arrangement you two have worked out, I don't care. But if you hurt him, I will make your life extremely difficult. Clear?" "Crystal clear." Bianca met her eyes steadily. "For what it's worth, I have no intention of hurting him. This arrangement benefits both of us, and I take my commitment seriously." Something shifted in Emma's expression, assessment becoming approval. "Gabriel said you were direct. I appreciate that." They returned to where Gabriel was waiting, talking with another cluster of guests. He glanced up when they approached, the question clear in his eyes. "Your sister is terrifying," Bianca said. "I know. It's one of her best qualities." Gabriel's relief was subtle, but visible. "Did she threaten you?" "Only a little." "She must really like you then. Usually she threatens a lot." Emma rolled her eyes. "You two are ridiculous. I'm getting another drink." She walked away, and Gabriel turned to Bianca with concern. "You okay?" "I'm fine. She's protecting you. I respect that." "She's overprotective. There's a difference." "Not when it comes to family." He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then the moment passed, and they were pulled into another conversation, this time with a journalist who was carefully circling the topic of their marriage without directly asking questions. "It's wonderful to see you both here supporting literacy initiatives," the journalist said. "Gabriel, I understand your wife has background in nonprofit work?" "She does. Bianca spent several years organizing fundraising events for children's hospitals before transitioning to strategic consulting." "And how did you two meet?" Bianca fielded this one, delivering the rehearsed answer with the right balance of warmth and privacy. "Through work, actually. We connected over shared professional interests and discovered we enjoyed each other's company. Things developed naturally from there." "How romantic, and you kept it quiet?" "We're both fairly private people. We wanted to build our relationship without external pressure or speculation." She smiled politely. "I'm sure you understand." The journalist did not, in fact, understand, but she was too professional to push. She asked a few more questions about the Literacy Foundation, then moved on to other targets. "Nicely handled," Gabriel murmured. "Caroline would be proud." "I'm just following the script." "You're making the script sound natural. That's the hard part." They made their way through the rest of the evening, navigating conversations and photo opportunities with increasing ease. Bianca found herself relaxing into the role, discovering that it wasn't so different from the fundraising events she'd organized years ago. Same social dynamics, just higher stakes. She was talking with a museum curator about expansion plans when she felt Gabriel stiffen beside her. She followed his gaze and saw Bradley making his way through the crowd, clearly headed in their direction. "I can handle this," Gabriel said quietly. "We can handle this," she corrected. Bradley reached them, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. His date, a blonde woman in her 20s who looked vaguely familiar from somewhere, hanging on his arm. "Gabriel, Bianca." Bradley's smile was tight. "Good to see you both." "Bradley." Gabriel's tone was professionally cordial, nothing more. "Enjoying the event?" "It's for a good cause." Bradley's eyes shifted to Bianca. "I didn't realize you two would be here." "Should have guessed, I suppose, given the circumstances." The slight emphasis on circumstances made it clear he still didn't quite believe the marriage was real. "We're always happy to support literacy initiatives," Bianca said smoothly. "It's an important cause." "Right, of course." Bradley gestured to his date. "This is Melissa." "Melissa, this is my ex-wife Bianca, and her husband Gabriel Lawson." Melissa's eyes widened at Gabriel's name. "Oh, wow, I've read about you. Your acquisition of Meridian Tech was brilliant." "Thank you, though the real brilliance is in the restructuring strategy my wife developed. She's the one fixing what I bought." The casual way he credited her work, the genuine pride in his voice, it was so different from Bradley's constant diminishment that Bianca felt something crack in her chest. Bradley's expression hardened. "Yes, I heard about your consulting work. Quite the career change from nonprofit fundraising." "Not really. Same skill set, different application." Bianca kept her voice pleasant. "I'm still solving organizational problems and helping people achieve their goals. I just get paid significantly better for it now." Gabriel's hand found hers, threading their fingers together in a gesture of solidarity that looked completely natural. "Well, congratulations on everything," Bradley said, the words sounding forced. "You've clearly landed on your feet." "I didn't land anywhere, Bradley. I climbed." She met his eyes directly. "There's a difference." The silence that followed was heavy. Melissa looked uncomfortable. Gabriel looked proud. Bradley looked like he'd been slapped. "We should circulate," Bradley said finally. "Good seeing you both." They watched him walk away. Melissa chattering nervously about something Bianca couldn't hear. That was incredibly satisfying, Gabriel said quietly. You completely destroyed him. I just told the truth. Exactly. He raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. You didn't land anywhere. You climbed. That's perfect. The gesture was outside their agreed-upon boundaries, more intimate than anything they'd discussed. But it felt right in the moment, a celebration of her victory, an acknowledgement of how far she'd come. Around them, people were definitely watching now. Tomorrow, there would be photos of that moment. Gabriel Lawson kissing his wife's hand, looking at her like she was the only person in the room. The narrative would write itself. But right now, Bianca didn't care about narratives or performance or what people would say. Right now, she was just savoring the look on Bradley's face when he'd realized she hadn't needed him to succeed. She'd needed him gone. Can we leave now? She asked. I think I've had enough of high society for one evening. Absolutely. I've been dreaming about those diner pancakes for the past hour. Gabriel guided her toward the exit, stopping to say brief goodbyes to Richard Chen and a few others. Emma intercepted them at the door. Leaving already? We've done our duty, Gabriel said, and I promised Bianca terrible diner food. Emma smiled. I like her, by the way. Don't screw this up. I'll try not to. Good. Emma hugged them both, surprising Bianca with the genuine affection. I'm flying back tomorrow, but let's have dinner next time I'm in town. All three of us. I'd like that, Bianca said, meaning it. They escaped into the cool night air, the photographers having moved on to newer arrivals. The car was waiting, and within moments they were pulling away from the museum, away from the performance, back into reality. Bianca leaned back against the seat, kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. I survived. You did more than survive. You were brilliant. Gabriel loosened his bow tie, undid the top button of his shirt. And the way you handled Bradley, I'm still not over that. He needed to hear it. He needed to hear it years ago, but tonight was perfect timing. They drove through Manhattan streets, the city passing by in a blur of lights and late-night energy. Bianca felt the adrenaline of the evening starting to fade, replaced by exhaustion and something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Or just relief that it was over and she'd proven she could do this. The diner was exactly as promised, terrible and perfect. Bright fluorescent lights, vinyl booths, a menu that offered everything from pancakes to meatloaf. They ordered too much food and ate while still in their formal wear, looking completely ridiculous and not caring at all. Can I ask you something? Bianca said, stabbing at her pancakes. When you kissed my hand earlier, was that planned? Gabriel paused mid-bite. No. Heat of the moment. You just put your ex-husband in his place, and I was proud of you. It felt like the right gesture. He set down his fork. I'm sorry if I overstepped. You didn't. I'm just trying to figure out where the performance ends and the real moments begin. That's a good question. He was quiet for a moment, considering. I think maybe they're starting to blur. The performance is getting easier because parts of it don't feel like performance anymore. What parts? Being proud of your work, enjoying your company, wanting to celebrate your victories. He met her eyes. Those are real, Bianca. The context might be unusual, but the feelings are genuine. She didn't know what to say to that. They'd entered into this as a business arrangement, clear boundaries and exit strategies. But sitting across from him in a terrible diner at midnight, both of them too dressed up and too comfortable, she had to admit he was right. Something was shifting. I like spending time with you, she said carefully. That complicates things. Does it have to? We have an end date. 6 to 8 months, then we stage a divorce and move on with our lives. We have a flexible timeline and an option to renegotiate at quarterly reviews. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not saying we change the fundamental agreement, but maybe we acknowledge that this partnership is becoming a friendship, and that's okay. Good, even. And when it ends, then we'll have 6 months of memories and a friendship that continues beyond the contract. He smiled. Unless you're planning to hate me when this is over? I don't think I could hate you if I tried. Good. Because I'm planning to annoy you for years to come, marriage or no marriage. They finished their meal in comfortable silence, paid a check that was laughably small compared to the gala's ticket price, and headed back into the night. The car took them to Bianca's building first, pulling up to the curb just before 2 in the morning. "Thank you for tonight," she said, gathering her shoes and clutch. "For all of it. Thank you for being exactly who you are." Gabriel walked her to the door, ignoring the driver waiting. "Tomorrow, the photos will be everywhere. Are you ready for that?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Caroline will field media requests. Don't respond to anything directly, don't read the comments on social media, and call me if you need anything." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture tender. "You were amazing tonight, Bianca. I hope you know that." "I'm starting to." He kissed her cheek, lingering just slightly longer than necessary. Then he stepped back, gave her space to breathe. "Good night." "Good night, Gabrielle." She rode the elevator up to her apartment, let herself in, and immediately collapsed on her couch, still in the designer gown. Her phone had 17 new messages, but she ignored them all. Tomorrow, she'd deal with being Gabriel Lawson's wife in the public eye. Tonight, she just wanted to sit with the memory of destroying Bradley's assumptions and feeling Gabriel's pride in her success. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but the message made her smile. "Still thinking about I climbed. You're magnificent. Sleep well. Emma." Another message, this time from Gabriel. "Made it home. Driver said you looked happy. I hope that's true." She typed back, "Tonight was good. Different than I expected, but good." "Different how?" "More real than performance." "Is that strange?" "Not strange. Just honest." A pause. Then, "I'm glad you came into that restaurant last week. This arrangement has become my favorite business deal ever." "Mine too." "Good night, wife." "Good night, husband." She fell asleep on the couch, still in her gown, phone in hand, smiling at a ceiling she couldn't actually see in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new scrutiny, new complications, but tonight had proven something important. She could handle this world. She could stand beside Gabriel as an equal. And somewhere in the midst of their carefully constructed performance, something real was taking root. Whether that was wonderful or terrifying, she hadn't quite decided yet. Probably both. Definitely both. The photos hit the internet before Bianca even woke up. She discovered this when her phone started buzzing at 7 in the morning with calls from numbers she didn't recognize and texts from people she'd barely spoken to in years. She ignored them all, stumbled to her coffee maker, and only then made the mistake of checking social media. The first image she saw was from the museum steps. Gabriel's hand on her back, both of them looking at each other with expressions that seemed far too genuine for a business arrangement. The caption read, "Gabriel Lawson and mystery wife make first public appearance. Sources say the couple has been married for months." She scrolled through dozens more. Gabriel kissing her hand, her laughing at something he'd said. The two of them talking with Richard Chen, looking every inch the power couple. And in the background of one shot, barely visible but unmistakable, Bradley watching them with an expression that tabloids would probably describe as heartbroken. Her phone rang. "Gabriel, have you seen the coverage, but?" he asked without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. We're everywhere." Caroline says it's exactly what we wanted. Aspirational couple, genuine affection, nothing scandalous or suspicious. The narrative is holding. He paused. "How are you feeling about it?" Bianca stared at a photo of herself looking radiant in that midnight blue dress, Gabriel beside her looking proud. They looked like they belonged together, like the marriage was completely real. "I feel like I'm looking at someone else's life," she admitted. "Good someone else or bad someone else?" "I'm not sure yet." She set down her coffee cup. "When does it get easier? The constant scrutiny?" "It doesn't. You just get better at ignoring it." His voice softened. "Listen, I have meetings all morning, but I'm clear this afternoon. Want to come by the office around 2? We can go over the Meridian Tech implementation plan, and I can show you the second company assessment. Work as distraction from fame? Work as reminder that you're more than just my accessory. You're a consultant who's about to save me millions in lost productivity." She smiled despite herself. 2 o'clock. I'll be there." The morning passed in a blur of finalizing her Meridian Tech recommendations and fielding messages from Caroline about interview requests, all of which they were declining. Bianca worked from her new office space, appreciating the separation from both her apartment and Gabriel's building. This was her space, her work, independent of the arrangement that had given her access to it. At 1:30, her phone rang with a number she recognized but hadn't expected to see. Bradley. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Bradley? Bianca. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. He sounded strained, tired. Not about us. About your husband. What about him? Can we meet? Just for coffee. 30 minutes. I promise this isn't me trying to cause problems. She should say no, should hang up and block his number and move forward without looking back. But something in his tone caught her attention. Not manipulation, but genuine concern. Fine. 30 minutes. There's a coffee shop on 47th and Lexington. 1 hour. She texted Gabriel. Bradley wants to meet. Says it's about you. I'm going to hear him out. We'll fill you in at 2. His response came immediately. Want me to come with you? No. I can handle this. I know you can. Be careful anyway. The coffee shop was crowded with the lunch rush dispersing into afternoon caffeine runs. Bianca ordered an Americano and found a corner table, positioning herself where she could see the door. Bradley arrived 10 minutes later looking significantly less polished than he had at the gala. No designer suit today. Just jeans and a button-down that needed ironing. He got coffee and joined her, sitting across the small table with visible discomfort. Thank you for meeting me, he said. You have 28 minutes left. What's this about? Gabriel Lawson. Bradley wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. I've been asking around about him, discreetly, through people I trust. The picture I'm getting doesn't match the perfect husband routine. Let me guess. Someone told you he's ruthless in business, demanding with employees, and doesn't suffer fools. All of which is true and none of which is relevant to our marriage. That's not what I mean. Bradley leaned forward. I'm hearing about companies he's destroyed, people whose careers he's ended, competitors he's crushed without mercy. This is a man who sees everything as strategy, Bianca, including you. She took a careful sip of coffee, keeping her expression neutral. You're warning me about my husband based on business reputation? That's your concern? My concern is that you married him suspiciously fast after he humiliated me at that investor dinner. My concern is that a man worth billions doesn't suddenly marry a consultant he barely knows unless there's an angle. Bradley's voice dropped. I think he's using you to make himself look stable and settled. And when he's done with whatever he needs you for, you're going to get hurt. Bianca set down her cup with deliberate care. Let me make sure I understand. You're concerned that my husband might be using me for strategic purposes? Yes. You. The man who told me I wasn't built for the real world. The man who suggested I stick to nonprofit work because I couldn't handle actual business pressure. The man who made me feel small for 2 years and then acted surprised when I left. She met his eyes steadily. You're concerned about someone else using me? Bradley flinched. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You're projecting, Bradley. You're assuming Gabriel sees me the way you did, as someone to manage and control and eventually discard. But here's what you don't understand. She leaned forward. Gabriel values my expertise. He trusts my judgment. He celebrates my successes instead of feeling threatened by them. Whether our marriage is a strategic arrangement or the greatest love story ever told, he treats me with more respect than you ever did. So you admit it's an arrangement. I admit nothing. I'm simply pointing out that your concern is misplaced and, frankly, insulting. She stood, gathering her bag. You have 5 minutes left, by the way. Want to use them for anything productive? Bradley looked up at her, something broken in his expression. I handled our marriage badly. I know that now. I made you small because it made me feel bigger. And when I saw you at the gala, looking like you'd been born to that world, standing next to someone who clearly sees your worth, it made me realize what I'd lost. You lost me 2 years ago, Bradley. You don't get to have regrets about it now. I know, but I can still try to protect you from making the same mistake I did, thinking someone is what they appear to be when they're really just using you. Bianca studied him for a long moment. The concern was genuine, she realized. Misguided and hypocritical, but genuine. He actually thought he was helping. I appreciate that you're worried, she said, softening slightly. But I'm not the same person I was when we divorced. I don't need protection. I need respect, and Gabriel gives me that. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope your project finds better funding. The concept really is good. You just need to fix the execution. She left him sitting there, walked out into the afternoon sun, and headed toward Gabriel's office. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. Major interview request from Financial Times. They want to do a profile on power couples in business. Thoughts? Bianca typed back, "Let me discuss with Gabriel first." She was still processing the conversation with Bradley when she arrived at Lawson Capital. Security waved her through. She was apparently in the system now, no visitor badge required. The receptionist smiled with genuine warmth. "Mrs. Lawson, Mr. Lawson is expecting you. Go right up." Mrs. Lawson. The name still felt strange, borrowed from someone else's life. She found Gabriel in his office, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, looking at 3 monitors simultaneously while talking on the phone. He gestured for her to come in, mouthed 2 minutes, and continued his conversation about acquisition timelines and due diligence. She settled in the chair across from his desk, watching him work. This was Gabriel in his element, sharp, focused, completely in command. It was easy to see how he'd built an empire, harder to reconcile with the man who'd taken her to Maria's restaurant and talked about wanting to be a history teacher. He finished his call, gave her his full attention. "How did it go with Bradley?" "He's convinced you're using me for strategic purposes and that I'm going to get hurt when you're done with me." Gabriel's expression darkened. "He said that?" "More or less. He's been asking around about your business reputation, gathering evidence that you're ruthless and calculating." She tilted her head slightly. "Are you going to tell me he's wrong?" "I can't. I am ruthless in business. I have destroyed companies and ended careers when necessary. I don't apologize for that." He came around the desk, sat on the edge facing her. "But there's a difference between business ruthlessness and personal cruelty. I don't confuse the two. Bradley thinks our marriage is strategic." "It is strategic. We both know that. The question is whether strategy and genuine care are mutually exclusive." He met her eyes. "They're not, Bianca. I entered this arrangement for practical reasons, but the person I've gotten to know over the past weeks, that's real. My respect for your work is real. My enjoyment of your company is real. What happens when the strategy is complete? When your acquisition closes and my consulting practice is established? We evaluate. Together. Like we agreed." He reached for her hand, threaded his fingers through hers. "I'm not going to hurt you, Bianca. Not intentionally. And if this arrangement ever starts feeling like something that's damaging rather than beneficial, we end it. Clean, professional, with mutual respect." She wanted to believe him. The problem was, she was starting to want more than just respect and professional courtesy. She was starting to want the performance to be real. "Bradley's concern made me realize something," she said quietly. "I'm getting too comfortable with this. With you. With being your wife. Is that a problem?" "It could be. When this ends, I'll have to untangle what was real from what was performance. That's going to hurt." Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing absent patterns on her hand. "What if we don't end it?" She looked up sharply. "What?" "What if we renegotiate the timeline? Extend the arrangement indefinitely, or at least until one of us wants to make a change?" He seemed to be choosing words carefully. "This partnership is working, Bianca. Better than I expected. Better than most real marriages I know. Why put an artificial end date on something that's beneficial to both of us? Because eventually, one of us might want something real. An actual relationship, not a strategic arrangement. And if we do, we discuss it, adjust accordingly, end things amicably if needed." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not suggesting we stay in this forever. I'm suggesting we stop treating it like it has an expiration date and instead evaluate it as an ongoing partnership that evolves as we do." It made sense. Terrifying, complicated sense. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He stood, pulled her to her feet. "Now come on. I want to show you something." He led her to the conference room where the second company assessment was laid out. Financial statements, organizational charts, market analysis. For the next 2 hours, they worked through the problems together, Bianca identifying issues while Gabriel provided context about acquisition history and strategic goals. It felt natural, collaborative, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. "You're seeing patterns I missed," Gabriel said, making notes on her observations. "This is exactly why I wanted you on these projects. You're giving me credit for doing my job. I'm acknowledging expertise when I see it. There's a difference." He looked up from his notes. "The Financial Times interview request? Caroline forwarded it to me. What do you think?" "I think it depends on what narrative we want to build. Power Couple suggests equal partnership, which could be good for both of us. But it also invites more scrutiny into our personal lives." "Agreed. My vote is we do it, but we set strict parameters. Business focus, nothing about romance or personal details. We talk about your consulting work, my portfolio strategy, how we collaborate professionally. Make it clear we're partners in every sense." "That could work." She pulled out her phone, typed a message to Caroline. "Let's do it. But I want to see the questions beforehand, and I want approval on quotes." "Absolutely. I'll have my team coordinate with yours." He paused, smiled. "Listen to us. My team, your team, like we're running campaigns." "Aren't we?" "I suppose we are." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned. "I have a call in 5 minutes that I can't postpone. Can you stay? We could grab dinner after." "I have work to finish at my office. Rain check?" "Tomorrow night. My place. I'll cook." "You don't cook." "I'll order in and plate it nicely. Same thing." She laughed, gathering her things. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. He walked her to the elevator, kissed her cheek in the hallway where anyone could see. It should have felt performative. Instead, it felt like routine, like something couples did without thinking. The elevator arrived. She stepped inside, turned to face him. "Gabriel, thank you for not being what Bradley thinks you are. Thank you for seeing more than what people assume I am." The doors closed on his smile, and she rode down alone, her mind spinning with possibilities and concerns in equal measure. Extend the arrangement indefinitely. Stop treating it like it had an expiration date. Evaluate it as an ongoing partnership. It sounded reasonable. It also sounded terrifying. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "Lunch tomorrow? I want actual details, not tabloid speculation." Bianca smiled, typed back, "Yes. Noon. Usual place." She needed to talk to someone who knew her before all this, someone who would tell her the truth even if it was uncomfortable. Jennifer had always been good at that. The next day, they met at a small bistro in the East Village, far enough from Midtown to avoid the business lunch crowd. Jennifer was already there, dressed in her usual casual elegance, studying the menu with the kind of focus that suggested she was really just waiting anxiously. "Okay," Jennifer said the moment Bianca sat down. "I've been patient. I've read the articles, looked at the photos, watched you become Manhattan's most talked-about wife. Now I want the real story. What is actually happening?" Bianca ordered wine first. This conversation required it. Then she told Jennifer everything. The investor dinner, the heat of the moment claim, the contract, the arrangement, the way it had started as pure strategy and was becoming something more complicated. Jennifer listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through shock, concern, and something that looked almost like admiration. "So you're telling me," Jennifer said when Bianca finished, "that you entered into a contractual fake marriage with a billionaire, used it to establish your consulting practice, and are now considering making it permanent?" "Not permanent, just indefinite, with the option to end it whenever." "That's the same thing, Bianca. You're talking about staying married to him." "In name only. Separate lives, clear boundaries, mutual benefit." Jennifer took a long drink of wine. "Can I be brutally honest? Please." "You're falling for him." She said it gently but firmly. "You're catching feelings for your fake husband, and you're trying to convince yourself that extending the arrangement is about strategy when it's really about not wanting to lose him." The words hit harder than Bianca expected. "That's not—" "It is. I've known you for 8 years. I watched you fall for Bradley, watched you make yourself smaller to fit his vision, watched you rebuild after he destroyed your confidence. And now I'm watching you light up every time you talk about Gabriel." Jennifer reached across the table, took Bianca's hand. "The question isn't whether you're falling for him. The question is whether he's falling for you too, or if you're setting yourself up to get hurt in a different way. He says the respect is real, the friendship is real. Respect and friendship aren't love. And if you want more than that, you need to be honest about it, with him and with yourself. Bianca pulled her hand back, wrapped it around her wine glass. We have a contract, clear terms, exit strategies. Bringing emotions into it complicates everything. Life is complicated. Pretending you don't have feelings doesn't make them go away. It just makes them more dangerous when they inevitably surface. Jennifer softened her tone. I'm not saying don't extend the arrangement. I'm saying figure out what you actually want first. Because right now it sounds like you're negotiating a business deal when what you really need is an honest conversation about whether this partnership could become something more. They finished lunch talking about other things. Jennifer's work at the nonprofit, mutual friends, the strange experience of being internet famous. But Jennifer's words stayed with Bianca long after they parted ways. Was she falling for Gabriel? The honest answer was probably yes. The question was what to do about it. That evening, she arrived at Gabriel's apartment at exactly 7, armed with wine and the determination to have an honest conversation. Gabriel answered the door in jeans and a sweater, looking relaxed and genuinely happy to see her. Perfect timing. Food just arrived. He took the wine, led her inside. I got Thai food from the place you liked. Figured we could eat, and then I wanted to run something by you. They settled on the floor by the coffee table again, sharing containers and talking about their days. Gabriel told her about the Meridian Tech board meeting, how her recommendations had been approved with enthusiasm, and she'd be leading the implementation. Bianca shared details from the second company assessment, the patterns she was seeing across his portfolio. It was easy, comfortable, natural, like they'd been doing this for years. After they finished eating, Gabriel poured more wine and turned slightly more serious. I've been thinking about what we discussed yesterday, about extending the arrangement. He set down his glass. But before we make any decisions, I need to tell you something. Bianca's heart rate picked up. Okay. My acquisition closes next week. The board concerns that prompted this whole arrangement, they're resolved. I don't need to be married anymore to satisfy their requirements. He met her eyes. Which means if we continue this, it's not because I need to, it's because I want to. Want to for strategic reasons? Want to because I enjoy having you in my life, because you make me laugh and challenge my thinking and remind me there's more to existence than building companies. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I entered this as a business arrangement, but somewhere along the way you became my friend, and I don't want to lose that when the contract expires. Just friends? The question came out before she could stop it. Gabriel went very still. What are you asking? This was it, the moment where she could be honest or retreat to safety. Jennifer's words echoed in her mind. Figure out what you actually want. I'm asking if the possibility exists for this to be more than friendship, more than strategy, more than a convenient arrangement that benefits us both. She forced herself to hold his gaze. Because I'm starting to want that. And I need to know if I'm alone in that, or if you feel it too. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Gabriel's expression was unreadable, and for a terrible moment, Bianca thought she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then he smiled, soft and genuine and slightly disbelieving. You're not alone, he said quietly. I've been trying to convince myself this was just practical, just professional. But the truth is I look forward to seeing you every day. I find excuses to text you. I brought you to Maria's because I wanted to share something that mattered to me with someone who matters to me. He reached for her hand. I don't know what that means for the contract or the arrangement or any of the practical details, but I know I don't want this to end when the business reasons disappear. So what do? We renegotiate. Not as a business arrangement, but as two people who enjoy each other and want to see where this goes. He threaded his fingers through hers. We date our fake marriage. Figure out if what we have in performance can translate to reality. She laughed despite the emotional weight of the moment. That might be the strangest proposal I've ever heard. It's a strange situation. We might as well embrace it. He pulled her closer until they were sharing space in a way they hadn't before. What do you think? Want to try being actually married to your fake husband? That's going to be very confusing to explain to people. Then we don't explain it. We just let it be what it is and figure it out as we go. She thought about the past weeks, the partnership, the laughter, the comfortable silences. Thought about how different it felt to be with someone who celebrated her successes instead of feeling threatened by them. Thought about the way her heart jumped every time he smiled at her. "Okay," she said, "let's try this. For real." "For real," he echoed, and kissed her. It was nothing like the performative gestures they'd practiced. This was tentative and genuine and full of possibility. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "We should probably tell Caroline," Bianca said. "She's going to have opinions about this development." "Caroline's going to be insufferably smug. She called this weeks ago." Gabriel kept his arm around her shoulders, pulling her against his side. "But first, there's something I want to show you." He led her to his office, pulled up something on his computer. It was a news article, several weeks old, about Bradley's housing development project. "I've been monitoring this," Gabriel said. "His funding fell through after our dinner, like we knew it would. But the project itself, you were right about the potential. The location is good. The concept is solid." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm considering funding it myself. With conditions. He brings in a project manager with actual experience, extends the timeline, adjusts the budget to realistic parameters. All the things you identified as problems." He looked at her. "I wanted your opinion before I move forward." Bianca stared at the article, processing. "You want to fund my ex-husband's project. I want to fund a good project that needs better execution. The fact that it's his is almost irrelevant." Gabriel's expression was serious. "But only if you're okay with it. This isn't me trying to help him. It's me recognizing good business when I see it, partly because you helped me see it clearly." She thought about Bradley, about the genuine concern he'd shown despite his misguided assumptions, about the fact that his project really did have merit if handled correctly. "Do it," she said, "but make sure the conditions are strict. He needs to learn to listen to expertise instead of assuming he knows better." "Strict conditions. Got it." He closed the laptop, turned to face her fully. "You know what this means, right? If I fund his project, we'll have to see him occasionally. Business meetings, progress updates." "I can handle Bradley. He doesn't have power over me anymore." "No," Gabriel agreed. "He really doesn't." They returned to the living room, to the comfort of the couch and the city lights beyond the windows. Bianca curled against Gabriel's side, feeling the solid warmth of him, the reality of this shift from performance to genuine possibility. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a while. "Always. When did you know that this was more than just an arrangement?" Gabriel was quiet for a moment, thinking. "The second chess game. When you remembered everything I'd taught you and actually gave me a real challenge. You were so focused, so determined to learn and improve. And I remember thinking I wanted to teach you everything I knew about chess and business and life, not because you needed teaching, but because sharing those things with you made them better." He brushed a kiss against her temple. "What about you? Maria's restaurant, when you told me about washing dishes and being broke and still dreaming of teaching history, you let me see who you were before you became what everyone expects you to be. That's when I knew you were more than the performance." "We're both terrible at keeping appropriate boundaries, apparently." "Apparently?" She tilted her head to look at him. "So what happens now? Do we tell people the arrangement is real? Stage some kind of announcement?" "We don't tell anyone anything. We just live our lives and let them draw their own conclusions." He smiled. "The beauty of everyone already thinking we're married is we don't have to explain the evolution. We just let it happen naturally." "What about the contract?" "We tear it up, replace it with something simpler, a prenup maybe, if we're being practical. But this isn't a business arrangement anymore. This is two people seeing if they can build something real together." It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like relief. They stayed up late talking through details, practical things like whether she'd move into his apartment or they'd maintain separate spaces, how to handle the inevitable media attention when they were seen being genuinely affectionate, what to tell their respective families. Gabriel called Emma on speaker and she shrieked so loudly they both had to hold the phone away from their ears. "I knew it," Emma crowed. "I told you she was different. Don't screw this up, Gabriel." "I'm going to try very hard not to." "Good. Bianca, you call me if he does. I'll fly in and knock sense into him." "I appreciate that," Bianca said, smiling. After they hung up, Gabriel pulled her close again. "My sister likes you more than she likes me. That's both insulting and reassuring." She's protecting you. I respect that. She's planning your wedding. Real wedding, not the fake one we apparently skipped. He paused. Unless you want a real wedding, we could do that. Small ceremony, close friends, make it official in every way. We're already legally married. The paperwork was part of the original arrangement, remember? Right, so we're actually married people figuring out if we want to stay married for real reasons instead of fake ones. This gets more complicated the more I think about it. She laughed, the sound free and genuine. We entered into a fake marriage, caught real feelings, and now we're dating each other while legally bound. If this isn't the strangest love story ever, I don't know what is. The strangest and possibly the best. He stood, pulled her to her feet. Come on, it's late, and you have that Financial Times interview tomorrow. You should get some sleep. Are you kicking me out? I'm suggesting you go home to your apartment and get actual rest, rather than staying here and us both being distracted by the newness of this. He walked her to the elevator. Tomorrow night, stay. We'll figure out the logistics of actually living together. But tonight, let's be smart about this. She appreciated the thoughtfulness, even as part of her wanted to stay. Tomorrow night, then. He kissed her properly this time, taking his time, making it clear this wasn't performance or strategy, but genuine desire. When they finally broke apart, both of them were slightly breathless. Tomorrow night, he confirmed. Now go before I change my mind about being smart. The elevator ride down felt different than every previous one. She wasn't leaving a business partner's apartment. She was leaving her husband's home, heading to her own space with the promise of returning tomorrow to start building something real. Her phone buzzed as she stepped into the waiting car. Gabriel. Made it to the elevator without begging you to stay. Want credit for remarkable self-control? She typed back. Full credit. See you tomorrow for the interview. Can't wait. Also, I should warn you, I'm apparently very affectionate when I'm actually dating someone. Hope you're prepared for that. I'll manage. We'll see. Good night, wife. Good night, husband. This time the word felt right. The Financial Times interview happened 3 days later, after strategic preparation from both their PR teams. The journalist was sharp, professional, clearly fascinated by the dynamic between them. Bianca talked about her transition from nonprofit work to strategic consulting, about identifying organizational problems and implementing solutions. Gabriel discussed his portfolio strategy, his approach to acquisitions, the importance of surrounding himself with people who challenged his thinking. When asked about their partnership, Gabriel didn't hesitate. Bianca sees things I miss. She has a gift for cutting through complexity and identifying core issues. Working with her has made me better at what I do. And what about the personal side? The journalist pressed. How do you balance professional collaboration with marriage? Bianca fielded this one. We started as colleagues who respected each other's work. The personal relationship developed naturally from that foundation. We're lucky that we genuinely enjoy working together. It makes both aspects of our partnership stronger. It was the truth, just framed carefully. The interview ran 2 weeks later with the headline, Power Couple Gabriel Lawson and Bianca Hartley Redefine Partnership. The article was fair, balanced, complimentary to both of them. Caroline called it a complete success. By then, Bianca had moved most of her things into Gabriel's apartment. They'd converted one of the spare bedrooms into her office space, maintaining the separation between their work while sharing their lives. It was an adjustment, learning each other's rhythms, discovering annoying habits, navigating the intimacy of actual cohabitation. But it worked. Better than worked. It felt natural. 3 months after the gala, Gabriel's acquisition officially closed. The board sent congratulations, noting approvingly that his personal stability had contributed to their confidence in the deal. He didn't correct their assumptions. 4 months in, Bianca's consulting practice had grown beyond Gabriel's portfolio. She had clients actively seeking her expertise, recommendations flowing in, a reputation that stood independent of who she was married to. She'd built something entirely her own. 5 months after that first investor dinner, Bradley's restructured project broke ground. The ceremony was small, professional. Bradley approached them afterward, looking more humble than Bianca had ever seen him. Thank you, he said to Gabriel, for taking the risk. And for the conditions. They were necessary. I'm learning to listen to expertise. Don't thank me. Thank Bianca. She's the one who saw the potential. Gabriel's hand found the small of her back, the gesture now completely unconscious. Bradley turned to Bianca, something like respect in his expression. You were right. About everything. I hope you're happy. I am, she said simply. I hope you are too. After he left, Gabriel pulled her close. That was gracious of you. He's learning. That's all any of us can do. They stood there watching the construction site, the foundation being laid for something that would become homes for families, opportunities for a neighborhood. It wasn't the same project Bradley had originally pitched, but it was better, refined by expertise, improved by collaboration. Kind of like her marriage, Bianca thought. That night, back at the apartment that had become their home, Gabriel poured wine and pulled her onto the couch. I have a question, he said. Should I be worried? Maybe. He set down his glass, turned to face her fully. We've been doing this, the real version of this, for 5 months now. And I know we said we'd take it slow, figure it out as we go. But I figured it out. Figured out what? That I want this to be permanent, not strategic, not convenient, not temporary. Just permanent. He took her hand. We're already married, so I can't exactly propose, but I can ask, do you want to stay married? For real, for always, because we actually love each other? Bianca felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. You love me? Completely. I love your brilliant mind and your terrible taste in diner food and the way you get competitive about chess even though I always win. I love that you climbed instead of landed. I love who I am when I'm with you. He brushed a tear from her cheek. So yes, I love you. The question is whether you love me back. I do, she said, the words coming easily. I love you. Even though you're terrible at cooking and you work too much and you somehow always win at chess even when I think I have you beaten. So is that a yes? You want to stay married for real? It's a yes. She kissed him, tasting wine and possibility. Though we should probably have an actual wedding at some point. Emma will never forgive us if we don't. Emma can plan the whole thing. I just want you. They stayed on the couch for hours, talking about the future they were building together. Real plans now, not strategic arrangements. Where they wanted to travel, what they wanted to accomplish, how they wanted to grow old together. At some point, Gabriel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, smiled. It's Emma. She says she's already picked out a venue for our real wedding, and we have no say in the matter. How did she even know we were having this conversation? Sister intuition. Also, I may have texted her earlier asking for advice on how to tell you I loved you without sounding like a complete idiot. And what did she say? She said I should just tell you the truth and trust that you felt the same way. He pulled her closer. She was right. Later, as they got ready for bed in the routine they'd developed over months of living together, Bianca thought about the path that had led here. A disastrous investor dinner, a heat-of-the-moment claim, a contract that had seemed insane and had turned out to be the best decision she'd ever made. She'd walked into Aurelius that night looking to prove herself professionally. She'd walked out with a fake husband and an opportunity that had changed everything. But somewhere between performance and reality, between strategy and genuine emotion, she'd found something she hadn't been looking for. She'd found partnership that celebrated rather than diminished her. She'd found someone who saw her completely and loved what he saw. She'd found home. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, catching her expression in the bathroom mirror. About how different my life is from where I thought it would be. Better different or worse different? Better. Definitely better. She turned to face him, though I still think our origin story is ridiculous. The best stories usually are. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. We can tell our grandchildren that I lied about being married to their grandmother, and then we made it true. That's going to require so much therapy for them. Good thing we'll be able to afford it. She laughed, and he kissed her, and somewhere in the city below, people were probably still talking about Gabriel Lawson's mysterious wife. Still speculating about the timeline, the secrecy, the strategic convenience of it all. Let them speculate. They could have their theories and their judgments and their assumptions. Bianca knew the truth. She hadn't landed in this life. She'd climbed to it, built it, earned every single piece of it through competence and determination and refusing to be small. And then she'd chosen to share it with someone who understood that her strength didn't threaten his, that her success didn't diminish his, that two powerful people could build something together that was greater than what either could create alone. She'd been Bradley's ex-wife, defined by what she wasn't. Now she was Gabriel's partner, defined by what they were building together. And that made all the difference.